All right, everyone, and welcome to the stream. This is Sharing with Shellshock. I am your host, ShellshockPrime, and we are back with yet another episode. And tonight, we are going to be talking about video game collecting. This time, we have 3 guests joining tonight. We got Zenspath.
Hello.
We got McPatches 3D.
Hello.
And we got Mantle Ferox. Mantle, you there? I didn't hear you.
Yes, I am here. I don't know why my mic is acting up.
You're good now. All right. So tonight we're going to talk about video game collecting. This is episode 22 of Sharing with Shellshock, and I'm glad to have the 3 of you here tonight as we talk about like all things related to video game collecting. But first, before anything, so Zenspath, you've been here before. Remind everybody like what type of content you do.
I host a podcast called the Zenspath 4-Button Podcast, where I have a couple of my friends or a rotating group of guests. We'll talk about gaming news, different topics, things like that. We do that usually every other week. We're looking to try and do it every week now. It's coming here soon. But it's the main part of it.
Okay. And McPatches, this is your first episode on the show. What type of content do you do?
Hi, I do a lot of gaming content. I play Souls-like, roguelikes, retro, pretty much like RPGs for the most part, but then we also dip into like survival horror and whatnot. On Sundays, a lot of times we do like chatting and go over like various nostalgic things like video game trailers and such.
Nice.
Things that I can squeak in under TOS.
Yep.
Like the MCA stuff.
Yeah, that's some good stuff right there. Yeah, because you every time you stream, it's always been a good time.
Thanks.
Yep.
I try.
Yeah. And Mantle, since you have been on here before, remind everybody what you do.
Hi everyone, I am Mantle. I am a marine biologist and also a Nintendo variety streamer. The joke, as I'm sure my background is an indication of, is that I'm also a Zelda streamer. Because even if I'm not actively playing a Zelda game on stream, I will usually wind up discussing it. But yeah, I play all sorts of games, anything from retro to modern. About 75% Nintendo, 25% PlayStation, and just really, my biggest goal is like to make things kind of like a cozy hangout. Like basically, we're all hanging out like on the couch. And I just happen to be sharing a video game.
Yep. Well, we got a lot of different topics in regards to video game collecting. The first thing that we're going to talk about today is: have you always been a collector? And if so, why did you start? Which many of us have collected, but Zenspath, we'll start with you.
Start with the old man in the group, huh? So, I've tried to be a collector most of my life for a lot of this stuff. Kind of started off with Transformers, which I still collect to this day. That's probably the only other collection that rivals my gaming collection. But I got into more of a gaming collection probably in high school when I finally, could get the money to start collecting and hunting for those things and get more of an actual space to keep them. So I've been doing it for a while now. It's been a few decades.
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Considering a few decades, there's a lot of games to have collect around this time.
Say it again.
Since considering so many decades, there's a lot of games that many of us would have collected around those times anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely been a while.
Yeah. What about you, McPatches?
Yeah, I was casually a collector growing up. Like I used to have like a ton of NES and Genesis games that unfortunately got stolen by my aunt's ex-husband. But a lot of resets collecting growing up, and then I kind of let it go and only collected like modern games. But then luckily around 2017, I got back into it after snagging a lucky deal on an N64 bundle. And then I went ham and I got a lot of heavy hitters over those couple of years before the prices like astronomically blew up. So I have a decent collection of disc-based games over here, and then I have a bin full of cartridge games with like 64, Genesis, and Super Nintendo. So I collect a broad stance of games.
All
A
right.
little bit of toy collecting, not much. I don't have the room for it.
Yeah, yeah,
That's fair.
The wife will kill me if I go heavy on that.
yeah. What about you, Mantle?
I've honestly been a game collector since before I realized I was a game collector. My first game console I received for my 5th birthday, that was my Nintendo, and received a few good games with that. That was like the whole ultimate set. So I have like the Mario, Duck Hunt, and World Class Track Meet all in one cartridge.
Nice.
Started with that, and it's really funny because I've been rearranging my game shelves recently. So we got 2 of them flanking my TV, and I realized, oh, I have more games. I have to move these ones over here now on this blank space. Because again, we all know with shelf space you try to plan ahead, and I have. But I showed a video of my progress to my friend, and her exact words were, "That is a heckin' lot." And I didn't tell her that's only half of it. But the funny thing with that though is I basically said that's what happens when you started collecting before you realized it. When you love video games, when you very rarely sell your old games, and then when you become an adult and make very grown-up decisions with very grown-up money, and you get to carry on from that. So I kind of staggered it, right? Because see, my birthday's in June, so I used to only get games mostly between like Christmas and birthday, so I got to stagger it then. So that would steadily grow, and it was honestly just kind of an exponential climb, especially once I got to high school and then college when I started buying more of my own games. And thankfully, many of the old classics that people hunt, I already had. So for me, it's more just like, all right, let's fill in the gaps, and even more, let's keep up.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I said, just before I realized it, and it probably runs in the family though, because my dad and I are both collectors of things we love on what I have dubbed our serotonin shelves.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So I've pretty much been getting video games since I was a little kid. Like the first time I actually have gotten a video game was back when I was like 3 or 4 in 1990. But the first time I realized that I was a collector, the moment I realized I was a collector was sometime around like mid to late PS2 GameCube era, where I had a decent amount of PS2 games, decent amount of Game Boy Advance games, and a decent amount of GameCube games. I never owned an original Xbox. It's just those 3 platforms that I was supporting during that time. And then I had a pretty sizable collection on the Wii and the Xbox 360, and it got to the point where I actually own more games, like twice the amount of games I own on the Wii than I do on the GameCube, and a lot more on the Xbox 360, which my brother has the whole collection since a lot of the stuff he bought. For DS and 3DS, like my collection just kept growing. Like from one generation, I had like maybe like 20 something Game Boy Advance games, and then I have about like 40 plus DS games, and it got to the point where I got to the 3DS, I was around like somewhere within the 40s to 50s, though my Wii U collection just wasn't really all that big because the Wii U's library was not really, like in terms of the library that they have, not all the games that I wanted really appeal to me, or I can get it like elsewhere if it's like a third-party game. But at the same time, I feel like I cemented myself as a collector the moment I realized I have over like 114 or 115 games, like physical copies of Switch games right on my shelf right now.
Same.
Yeah. I didn't.
If we're going into numbers of games, I could probably throw out some on that, but
I mean, same, honestly. Well, that's the funny thing too is I don't know how many of you guys or anyone in chat has a backloggery account, which I actually could have got one like 2 years. Well, Shellshock, we needed to like, yeah. I had one. I could have got one like 2 years previously, but this was when it was still in the site's infancy, and they didn't have the capacity to add accounts then. So I waited, kicked myself for it, but have it now. And I just saw those numbers keep growing. And hilariously enough, it was thanks to that, looking at my numbers, is how I also boosted my Wii library, even with some rare games, because I'm like, no, I can't have more PS3 games than Wii games. And that kicked that off. Again, games I would have got anyways.
Yeah.
but it turns out a couple of them I just hadn't got for whatever reason, and I got for good deals, including now Pandora's Tower and Last Story. So, but yeah, I just Shellshock and everyone here, Backlogger is great for helping that, and I look at it and just see where it just keeps climbing between more games being out, us all having more memories attached, us being more aware of it. So it's great to see though how it keeps growing with most consoles. And with the Wii U, I love the Wii U. It's one of my 3 favorite consoles ever, but I don't have as many games for it because there just simply weren't as many. But the library, even though it's small, it is solid.
Yeah, that's the one collection I have the entire North American set. Every physical release for that.
That's awesome.
Actually, you can kind of see it behind me. That's the collection's right there, the store display. I've got all that stuff set up for it. So Wii U's always been important to our family for a lot of reasons. So
that's fair.
Yeah. I don't have complete sets. I mostly collect like things I'll play or things I'm like at least interested in playing. I will, if I'm out like thrifting or something and see a good deal, I'll pick it up if it's something I can trade or something towards like a bigger game. Like I used to have extra copies of like Silent Hill 2 and Smash Bros. Brawl and or Melee and such, but they became Chrono Trigger and Suikoden 2.
Yeah, like for me, a lot of games that I've actually purchased, there was a lot of deals that popped up over time, like summer deals, spring deals, like Black Friday, holiday deals. You would see like, or whenever like a store decides, like, you know what, we're gonna do a buy one get one half off, or buy two get one free deals on all platforms, and one thing I can tell you is that I used to be a member of Best Buy's Gamers Club Unlocked before they shut that down, which it used to be that I would get 20% off on any of the games that they have for sale. I used to take advantage of that. That was the best. I actually started doing this during the Switch era. Like the moment that the Switch was new, I started doing this. Like, so it does help. It does help whenever you buy like games that normally would cost $60. Though I wish we had it now because a lot of games are starting to become $70. But that's
like, going back up to that price.
I know that we're a niche market that they have, and that they. I'm sure there's some business aspect, because I often joke, like, I'm a marine biologist, not a business person, but I wish they'd bring it back, because even if it was a small bit of their revenue, it solidified me as more of a customer of theirs.
Yeah, exactly.
And now I juggle between things, so.
Yeah,
I ended up getting the Best Buy credit card when I upgraded my TV because I had a good deal on the 48-inch OLED. It was like 800-ish, I think, at the time.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, that TV's over $1,000, so I'm going to put that on credit and buy it now.
That is a
plan.
Well, if
You
we're talking
also-
about that, sorry,
Sorry. You get like 5% back on all your purchases and random little deals that'll pop up. So it's like save some money over time.
Yep.
I'll keep that in mind because I'm trying to figure out like what I would want for a credit card. But I'll definitely keep that in mind for that. Funny things though, since we're talking TVs and collecting and stuff, y'all might get a kick out of this. I had a 47-inch LG TV when I had moved to my first city for the first aquarium I worked at. And it worked great for a number of years, but then it just even though I replaced its circuit board when the HDMI stopped working and replaced that myself, it just crapped out on me. Like, you know, whenever you press the wrong input on the wrong channel, it keeps saying that function is not available right now. It kept flashing that, and I couldn't stop it.
Wow,
so
that's the worst.
I had to replace the TV. I got lucky though, because it was spring when this happened, which. For those who don't know, the best time to buy a new TV is right before the Super Bowl, because they actually have the best damn deals on. So if you ever have to hold off, there you go. Anyways, I went to Sam's, because I have a membership there, and they had a 65-inch Samsung. And turned out they also had a sale on the same model, curved.
Yeah.
At first I was like, I don't watch that much TV or movies. I can't really justify. Wait a minute, I spend all my time in front of my TV playing video games. This thing was over $1,000 off of its main price, so I just said, yes, this is mine, and that's how I enjoy all my games now.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
I didn't think the picture was like that different before I got an OLED, but now I'm like, the blacks do look really amazing. It helps the picture, like when I'm streaming like a PS5 game, I'll see it in like 4K, and I'll look over and see what the game looks like on stream, and it still looks good. Don't get me wrong, but it's 1080p versus 4K on an OLED. I'm like,
mine's not OLED, but it's still like striking.
Yeah.
I get down to kind of the numbers game for a lot of my stuff for screens, for hooking up older systems and everything between, because I host the show, but I'm also an electronics engineer, so this is kind of like all in my wheelhouse of doing this.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I just hooked up a 16x1 HDMI switch that controls everything that's hooked up behind me.
It's awesome.
Nice.
Running through everything, full HDR support, 4K 60 for those, with other ones for 120 hertz. I can scale and play on a 4K TV with no lag from everything from an original NES all the way up to modern systems. So it's kind of like I get into the nitty gritty of that for fun. And you know, you can see the screen and some of the stuff behind me right now. That's one of them, but I've got them spread around the house.
That's awesome, dude.
Very awesome.
I need to start streaming more as well, because actually right after this show, the first thing I'm doing, this whole desk is being dismantled and going on the other side of the wall in this second room, so I can start. Huh?
Please don't.
Here's what I have to say about her.
Them.
Sorry.
You're
Apologies.
fine.
But it's going to be on the other side of the wall, so I can hook up everything, run off that same switch, and be able to try and stream and record again, because it's been a while. But that's half the fun for me, is just getting those old systems hooked up. But yeah, the TV's definitely trying to get that tweaked. And even the monitor I'm using, this is also 4K HDR, because I want to make sure it looks as good as I can playing
awesome.
it. And
Yeah.
So it's fun.
I'm about to rewire my own cable management with my RetroTink and my splitter and everything, so I'll be sure to keep you posted on the fun.
I find it relaxing. I'm just that weirdo.
Cable management. I definitely do that.
Yep, same.
Yes. All right.
My desk is pretty chaotic.
Yeah.
Like my retro area is not too bad, except for
we'll get there together. I'm
power.
actually I'm really good at cable management. The problem is because of everything that this move involved, I was just like, I just need to get it set up for now. But now that Tears of the Kingdom is about to come out, I'm like, okay, very steadily work on this, and I'll show you all the beautiful cable management sometime. I'm pretty chuffed with it.
If I just angled my camera up, you would see I don't have a ceiling in this room quite yet. And there's wires going everywhere that's all organized and everything for different stuff. And
I remember that from last time.
Well, now it's got the charge cable, the cable going from my car charger, my network cables, surround sound speaker wires, everything's being routed, conduit. Yeah, I'm
that
kind
is
of going
so
to town.
badass. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I owned my place, I would definitely do a lot more things like that. Like, but since it's a rental, I have a lot of freedom to do what I want because it's a private rental, and my landlord's really chill about things.
That's good.
But it's just like the worry of breaking something. We already like chipped the stairwell area when I was bringing up my entertainment center that we semi-made. We altered because the taco was closing. I bought one of the shirt cubby table things because it was like $70, I think, $60. And I was looking at it when we were there. I was like, that would fit all of my retro consoles. And my wife was like, let's get it. And we bought it. And then her stepdad drilled holes in the back. So it's an actual entertainment center.
Yeah.
Nice.
But it's big and heavy.
And the four of us, we're not just collectors. We also like to modify our setups and display things. So that just goes hand in hand with it.
I eventually want to make my own desk. I have a cheap Amazon desk that I got when I moved in because I was like, I had a tiny corner desk at my last place because it was a smaller apartment, and then I was like, I can get a bigger desk, but I didn't want to spend a lot of money, and I regret it a little bit.
Yeah. Anyway, I want to share. Before we move to the next topic, I want to share this comment that System Malfunction said. Some retro games I've been picking up are more than the current games. Yup.
Yep, that happens.
Oh yeah, that's for sure.
And System's been working on the picking the collection up, so I know it's been part of like the really good chat across all our communities. So that's why I was extra hyped for tonight.
Oh yeah.
Like my retro collecting is slowed to a halt with like the prices, like, and where I'm at with it. I'm at a point where pretty much everything I want is like 100 plus. So I'm like, got to slow down a little bit. Can't just throw away all my money.
Yeah.
I feel that.
Yeah, that's just the way it is, unfortunately.
modern gaming outside of the Switch isn't too bad if you don't want it like day one.
Yeah.
If it's a game that you don't absolutely have to play like right at launch, you wait like a year.
Yeah.
Within that time frame, you'll be able to pick it up for like $20 or so.
Yeah.
For the retro one, like similar to that, I mean, my retro collecting, it's not on a pause. It's still very selective because same as both of you mentioned, I tend to be more of a, am I actually going to play this game? There are a couple things where I'm like, no, this is ridiculous. I have to have it. But usually it's like, will I actually play this? So most of my retro collection, I'm pretty satisfied with. But that doesn't mean I'm necessarily finished. I like to, and I'll talk about more about it later. I like to see if there's any hidden gems, import versions, and I love some of the fan games or translations, which is then put on cartridges so I can play it on real hardware.
Yeah.
But for me, if you're ever at a convention with me, whenever there's any gaming booth of any sort, I will at least take some time to browse. But I'm so satisfied on my collection, I'm hardly like looking for a specific piece.
Yeah.
But I browse because, as we all know, you might find that hidden gem at a decent price, but otherwise it's still good to look at it, especially because if one of your friends comes and was like, hey, did you happen to see this? And you can say that you've already seen it for them. And as we all know, you can price check whether online or there, right?
Yeah.
But it's satisfying. We kind of talked about this with 2 weeks ago on the game rental discussion, where even if I know what my collection is and I'm satisfied, I still like to browse.
Yeah.
Because you never know what you'll find.
Exactly.
Definitely.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I still go to thrift stores and stuff, even though it's rare that you find anything anymore. I'll still go look. Sometimes you'll find like movies or something that are harder to find. Like I found a like collector's edition copy of the DVD of Dogma, which I have a small collection of movies, but Dogma had a really limited, like short run on Blu-ray. So that Blu-ray is like over $100 or so, because I can't remember his name. One of the shitheads that got in trouble.
It was Weinstein.
Weinstein. Thank you.
Yeah.
He has the rights, and Kevin Smith called him out. He had called him out, so he's punishing Kevin Smith by not allowing them to print it anymore.
That sucks.
Yeah. He'll die eventually.
Yeah. He will.
I need to downsize my movie collection, but I feel that.
Yeah.
As we all know, Shellshock, especially if you talk about with movie, and we all know with space management, everything, sometimes you have to make those calls in it. But so long as you're enjoying it at the core, that's the big thing.
Yes.
Yeah. I will admit, for a lot of this stuff, I am in the enviable position where, yes, I have my house. My wife is perfectly cool with this stuff. So we built I'm in one of 2 rooms we built onto the house just for my collection.
That's so cool.
But then I also have stuff. Like, she wanted, like, we've got a couple walls of games in our bedroom. She wanted statues and stuff in there. We've got, like, most of the movie collections in the living room with the other TV and the stuff the kids use. And we're just like, cool, I got space all over the place. And it's just, I know I'm lucky with that.
The hobby.
Yeah.
It's like, the reason I was like joking about the killing me over the toys earlier is like, they just take up so much space. And like, I have a room dedicated to all my nerd stuff. And then there's some downstairs, like, our movies are in our front room area, and then our Switch games are down there because we both play Switch. She's not as much of a gamer, but she's still okay with it.
Yeah.
I'm unfortunately still in the moving around block, but I have the advantage, though, of I've lived by myself since I was 18. So,
yeah.
I mean, my dad has still joked with me that I take after him and that I have too much stuff, which I admit I do, but it's a combination of my essentials, like furniture, but then also my collection. So moving is helping me pair it, but obviously you guys will see the updates between this place and wherever it takes me next, and hopefully that'll last longer.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. Look forward to that.
Same. All right.
Yeah.
So for the next part of the topic is, what are your thoughts on physical game collecting versus digital game collecting, which coincidentally was also asked from the community questions. But we're going to start with you, McPatches.
I think I have a preference. I do prefer physical collecting. I still do it on the modern consoles, even though it's less like important, since a lot of games need to be connected online at some point to be able to play. So down the road, there's going to be plenty of games that are going to be unplayable, which sucks. But I still prefer physical because you can also trade and resell if anything came up. I don't hate digital, and I sometimes will get digital if it's a game like a multiplayer game that I like. Online multiplayer, I should specify, that will not hold value down the road. I don't mind picking up digitally because then it just saves a little bit of space. Like Destiny 1, the disc is what, $2 because it's not relevant anymore. And
Right.
that game won't, I don't think that game will really hold value down the road. Worst case, I pick it up again. But yeah, so I do prefer physical, and I really hope that it doesn't die out because there's still a lot of people in more rural areas that don't have good internet, and we're seeing a lot of people struggle with that with the new Star Wars game. Beyond the performance issues, where there's like it's like 150 gigabytes. So even if they have internet, some of them have really slow internet. It's like 2 months of download speed, like with their
Oof.
caps and stuff.
That
Which
sucks.
is also the U.S. having terrible infrastructure on the internet, but
Yeah.
yeah. So I prefer physical, but I'm totally down with digital, and I get the convenience and like the storage space wise.
Oh yeah. What about you, Mantle?
I absolutely prefer physical by a long shot, but to me, as I was thinking about this question, it doesn't diminish the validity of any pieces in a digital collection, whether it's mine or anyone else's. Because, again, I know that we've all discussed this before. We all have our preferences for whatever. I have some friends who they really just prefer digital because they try to minimize their space. They like to be able to just play and go, and I get that. I don't prefer that, but to me, it's like you still have the game, that still counts. And as you guys touched on, sometimes games only have a digital release. And therefore having it still counts. And again, me, I live by physical forever, regardless of limited run or anything. The first two games that come to mind for me of like digital only are Ace Attorney, Dual Destinies, and Spirit of Justice. Two of my actual two favorite games in the entire series.
Yeah.
The West, as most of us here know, the West only got digital releases of them. And my digital downloads of both of those still absolutely count as part of my collection.
Yeah.
So for me, again, usually if it's a game, if there is a physical version, I'm always going to go for that. If it's an unbeatable deal, like after the great PSN outage, I think of like 2010 when they were giving those free games. Yeah.
Oh,
I got
yeah.
a couple free games from that.
Oh, yeah.
I
Right.
totally got it. I got a couple games. I wanted to get physical copies, but I'm like, they're free. I'll take it.
Yep.
And if I love a game enough and I've got the digital copy first, I will sometimes try to go back and get the physical. Like that happened with NES Remix 1 and 2. I downloaded those instant day one on the Wii U. Loved them so much that they released a physical. I'm like, I'll have to get it sometime, but I'm just glad we have it for more people. Another one with that was Cadence of Hyrule. That was originally just a download.
Yeah.
Right.
You bet your backside I bought that cart as well. But yeah, again, just I absolutely prefer physical, especially because it's always there. I don't have to worry about it being taken down at any given time, and also data corruption, as we all know. But I also, like I was mentioning earlier in chat, it's my serotonin shelves.
Yeah.
I love having that. And it's always good. But if you check out my backlog or anything else, except for like certain copies of the game, which I have numerous, Ocarina of Time, I have downloaded every possible version of that on any eShop it's been on because it's my favorite game of all time.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to include that on my backlog, but if it's a digital download, yeah, that's still part of my collection because I still have it. I can still play it, and I enjoy it.
Yeah.
Definitely.
What about you, Zenspath?
So I treat my collection is purely just physical games because I treat it kind of like a library, but the actual future of preservation is going to be rooted in digital over anything else. Just like you both mentioned earlier, we've got more modern games that require all these downloads and updates. Eventually, somebody will find a way to crack that, get those updates out available in the system later on for preservation, and be able to access it in some meaningful way. So while I don't view digital quite as much, like if somebody has, if some kid has just got a Raspberry Pi with some games that are on it, that's his collection, that's what he's playing. There is nothing wrong with that. Go for it.
Yeah.
That's a great way to start off if you need to. With so many members of my family and friends that play games, the library approach of how we have it set up, we'll just go through. You can, like go into a library, get a book out, you can get a game, borrow it, play it. We'll try it out. And that's what I normally keep track of. Like I have, I don't even know how many ungodly amount of digital titles, but I only keep track of the physical ones. So I know now, like I've got over 3,000 physical games right now that are, individual ones. Digital, I couldn't even tell you at that. It gets ridiculous.
Yeah.
Say though, I love the library analogy. That is a perfect way to describe it, and I think for all 4 of our very respectable collections, that's just perfect.
Well, that's how I treat it. Everything is displayed and put in. Like I like how your shelves are in the back there. Somebody could browse it, look through that. I usually know the history in a lot of the games, so I can, if I pull them out, I know the stories behind it or how that's gone, because that's a big part of my collecting as well.
Yeah.
And physical's always been, it's something you can touch and feel, and it's not just playing the game, but there's an entire story and an experience and enjoying. Because I grew up as a kid, I remember Super Mario Brothers 3. I remember when my parents sent me that while I was staying at my grandparents in Virginia. I got it in the mail while we were getting in the car because my grandma wanted to go for the day to go shopping, and she was taking me along. And I get Super Mario Brothers 3, and we're like, all right, we have to go. So all day, all I could do was look through the manual and just look at the cartridge going like, this is going to be amazing until I can get back. That whole experience isn't going to be the same for everybody on digital. I'm sure, you know, some people will have certain things and, they can put it on a Switch and just play it while they're gone. But that whole aspect to it on physical, I think, is unique to that part of it. So yeah, I will go physical anytime I can. Especially as much as I travel hunting for games, that's also half my fun. Is rifling through these stores to see what I can find. I found a late 1970s Pong type system just the other day with the instruction book and everything, and I was like, they didn't even know what they had. They were going to throw it away.
Oh wow!
I was like, can I have this?
Yeah, I feel that.
Well,
it's fine to the best.
I'm also glad you mentioned like being able to like on display and people seeing, because I don't have many friends come over these days, but the few times I have had a few people come over, even though my apartment is still partial box fort, my game shelves are impeccable, and they're like, hey, do you mind if I look through your games? I'm like, please go right ahead. And I have like my own personal organizational system, which I can describe another time, but here's the thing. I have bad executive dysfunction about getting some things done. And various cleaning tasks I know we could all relate to. I will say this, though. My weird little pleasure is reorganizing my shelves.
Right?
Like setting them up in the first place is hit or miss. Because like, if I have the stuff, here we go. But rearranging them, it's so fun.
I'll take every game down, clean them off, and I'm going through making sure manual good cartridge there, put them back up, make sure they're alphabetized. Yeah, no, it's oddly relaxing. Like I'll put on I'll put a record on and just be doing that.
Yes.
To move the shelves into here. I'm looking forward to that.
And the fun thing, like I mentioned with those friends, like, well, one of the first friend who came to visit me and saw that is Jinxie Rose, who she's a fantastic content creator, one of my big inspirations on Twitch, and she came over and she knows I'm a big gamer. She's seen some of this, and she was like, hey, do you mind if I just, and she doesn't know all these games, but the fact that she was able to see some of these that either she recognized or she was interested in checking out, and being able to see that spark aside from that your collection is also causing that joy for someone else is just, it's nice.
Yeah, I mean that's like going back to the library analogy. That's part of why I like having this laid out, because like the collection is great. A lot of people like having their collection and hiding it away. My collection is meant to be shown and shared. That's what I want to do with it. I don't want to just sit here and have my little. That's why I hate the term man cave. Like,
oh gosh.
Yeah. I don't have windows in this room. There are 2 exits. It's fire safe. But I want to share it and just not have glare from windows. So that's my intent. My family enjoys it. My kids come in here all the time. The only things that are not allowed in this room are the cats. Because I just don't want the cat stuff everywhere.
It was so funny with me. The last house I was living in, I hate the term living room. So the downstairs I would call it my den, and upstairs was my gaming den, because it was where I had my desk, because I have this glass L shape. But I still play most of my games on my TV. So I had it all set. It was similar to here. I've got my desk, behind that's my couch, and then there's my TV. So I can also like just lean over here and still play it from here if I want to. But I don't know if you guys ever do the same thing, because we all just talked about how rearranging is fun. Regardless of the display and how happy it makes us when our friends like our collection, do you ever just sit back sometimes and look at it and go, man, this is cool?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It just makes you happy.
Every little step I take rebuilding this room and doing everything, I'm just like, Yeah, this is nice.
I definitely need to put some of my games away because I, over time, will build up little Doom piles of games. Like, oh, I'm playing this. Okay, I finished this. I'm playing this now.
I'm very good about not doing that, but I feel
like
that.
I had to raise my kids going like, look, I don't care if y'all play a game. Take one at a time, please. Like, put it back.
The one that the main console I'm playing these days is my Switch. I have my Switch case as well as a couple of game cases. So if I'm going between a couple of games, I do my Splatoon dailies, and then if I'm playing Octopath or something, I'm able to just like have the thing there, quickly swap the carts, but it's still in a cartridge holder.
Yeah.
Yeah, I keep whatever games I'm actively playing in my case, but like for most of the other systems are right around this area, so it's pretty easy to get into and bring it up and put it away.
It's also like a combination of like the games I'm like streaming if I'm and then playing off stream, but also like when I get a couple like new games on sale or something, I end up like put them over there because like I didn't plan ahead when I first put this shelf up, and like so the PlayStation 5 collection is growing and it's pushing like everything down because I have it like PS5, PS4, PS3, PS2, and then it goes PS1. It goes down to like GameCube, then Wii, and so it's like generation. But I should have planned ahead for new games, but so I need to reorganize it at some point soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, the organization part is always complicated but fun, just because there's so much you can do with that. I'm working on building custom shelves, ceiling to floor, because thankfully this room's got like a 12-foot ceiling.
Oh, nice.
So I'm just gonna have everything lined up on the wall as we're custom building a few things, and
one of those like rolling ladders, like then you can pretend to be Belle but with gaming.
Okay, the nerdiest thing I'm doing, and it's not quite collection related, but like there's water pipes in this room. I want to have access to it, so we're actually rebuilding the firehouse locker from Ghostbusters with a brass nameplate and everything. It'll open up the door, be shallow enough for me to put my uniform in, but then the whole thing will open so I can get to the pipes. So I'm doing nerdy crap like that.
Okay.
But that's just as part of my other collection of my Ghostbuster stuff. Like I collect so many little weird things.
I think we all do. Like video games, I think are our biggest, whether it's the games themselves or the merch with it.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously that's how I met all three of you, and all three of you are three of my favorite people on this platform. But it's so cool.
Oh yeah.
I think gaming collecting is just a small symptom of my entire collecting thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, same.
Yeah.
This right here is why I was so hyped when Shellshock mentioned this as his new topic.
Oh yeah,
because I'm into collecting to the point like I even write articles about it, like about different types of collecting and other stuff that I've done over the years. So it's the one thing I joke, like if you had to throw me into like a lecture environment, I'd be like, oh, it's about collecting? Okay, let's take this class. Let's do it.
Well, yeah, like Shellshock asked me if I want to be on the show, and I was like, yeah. And he's like, what do you want to talk about? I'm like, I don't know. I'm a giant nerd. I can talk about a lot. And then when he hit me up, he's like, how about game collecting? I'm like, I can do that. And I have friends that have opened up stores in the last couple of years and stuff.
Oh, nice.
So
there you go.
I know I have that insider like thought process too a little.
That's so cool.
Very good. Very good.
This last fall, I got to go down to Portland for Portland Retro Game Expo, and I'd been once before as a guest, but this year I got to go and sell games with my buddy, and it was a ton of fun. He handed me a giant wad of cash to be able to break stuff, and I was like, "So this is for me to go buy myself video games, right?" He's like, "I'll kill you."
Oh man.
Yeah, it was fun. I got to talk to a lot of people about games and like direct them around and like be like, "Hey, have you tried like this version of the game and stuff?" So, yeah.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
My next goal is to get him to open up a location closer to me because his store is like 2 hours away. So if he opens up one here, I'll run it. You know.
Yeah. So in regards to going back to the whole like physical versus digital, like my stance on the whole thing, personally, I think that they're both 100% valid. I personally prefer to have physical copies as much as possible. Like for digital, I'm all for it if I am able to have the convenience of it, because I feel like both of them have pros and cons. Like in terms of digital, the pros and cons are that like you could be able to just have the game in your system, boot it up whenever without having to change like cards, discs, depending on the platform you're playing it on, and also being able to just like load the game and you're good. And usually, in most cases, it does boost the load times. Not for every game, but for a lot of games, they do boost load times.
Yeah.
The main problem with digital is the fact that once you buy it, that's it. With a few exceptions, there's no refunds. You keep it. You buy it, you keep it. The only time there would ever be a refund is if like you actually have to call whichever company, like based on the platform holder, like whether it's Sony, Nintendo, or Microsoft, and you have to talk to them about everything. Sometimes they'll grant it, and sometimes they don't. It just depends on the circumstance of the situation. But most of the time, they're not going to let you refund. Like if you don't, let's say if you buy a game and you're not satisfied with it, there's a good chance they are not going to refund it. Now, with physical,
it has to be like super broken for them to refund it a lot of times. Or you haven't touched it, you haven't like opened it and played it, and even then, it's a short window a lot of times.
It's kind of like you go to a restaurant and you ate the whole thing. Oh, I didn't like it.
Yeah. Case in point, like Pokemon Scarlet and Violet on like Switch, but like other platforms, they had similar issues, like Fallout 76, Cyberpunk 2077. There have been others, but those are some prime examples. But for me, like the pros and cons for physical, like you could be able to just buy the game, you have it on your shelf, you could be able to share it with your friends, share it with your family members. You could also borrow from other people too, in addition to just sharing it with other people. And back in the day, we used to rent, like as the last episode I had, which was game rentals. You could rent from like Blockbuster, Hollywood, when those were a thing. And then also like go to the library and rent games. Like some libraries let you do that. But then you also have like the ability to just sell the games if you're not satisfied with it, or if you actually are in need of money. Then there's that. But at the same time, the main for the cons, I feel like it's the fact that you just have to switch the cartridges, which to me is not a big deal. I've been used to that for all my life, so it's not a big deal. But for me, I feel like the pros outweigh the cons in that case, but they're both valid to have. So
absolutely.
So I personally prefer physical, but I did splurge on a lot of digital copies of games, and there were games that were digital first, then there was a physical copy later, because there's some smaller indie companies that they couldn't afford self-publishing, so they wouldn't be able to do physical copies on their own. And
I think indie's the biggest double dip for me for a lot of stuff.
Fair.
And for some of them, they had to struggle to get a publisher just so that they could be able to publish the games and have the physical cartridges. Like I remember Celeste, when that came out, it was digital only. I think it took like almost a year after the game came out. I think at least a year after the game came out for a physical copy to come out. And I think they released like a new version of a physical not too long ago, which has all the updates. I'm gonna have to look into that to see if that is the case, because
I'll have to get that too.
Because if they did, then because I didn't get the original print, but if they actually did release like a new version with like all the updates, then I'll actually get that myself, because Celeste is a fantastic game. But I would see like companies doing this, like limited run games, super rare games, and all that stuff. They would have limited copies of certain games. Usually, it would be indie games that where they just want to get a publisher, and that's what they get. But the problem is that they don't have as many copies as you would like. You would, and even then, the other issue I have with limited run games is shipping. Some people I know have waited months just to get copies of games. Like for me, I waited like maybe 2 or 3 months, to get Scott Pilgrim versus the World. That's the only time I've ever actually ordered online from them.
The only argument I would have with that is I kind of prefer the way they do it now. Because at first you had literally there was only so many they made. They were gone in seconds, and then that was it. Now it's easier for people to get access to these games. I'd rather wait because they get the order, then they produce them, so it saves them the money. More people get the games, and you're not rushed. Like there's I think 3 games right now I want to get, but I don't get paid till next week. I want to wait on that, so I'm not like going crap. I need to pull money from savings to go and get this. I'm just like I can wait. It's not that big a rush. And I tend to get more. Now, the longest, I'm still waiting, I think it's over a year now for one of my Castlevanias I ordered from them, one of the big collector's editions.
Yeah, same.
And, I mean, that happens. I kind of know, all right, I'm going to have to expect to wait a while. But that's my penance for wanting that physical copy.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah. I mean, I've been ordering from Limited Run for a while, and admittedly, I've overall had extremely positive experiences with them. Sometimes there's been the weight on it, but that's very rarely been an issue. But I absolutely get that frustration. Believe me, I get it. I get it. I don't know about you. My experience, they're usually really good about updating you about it, especially if there's an unforeseen delay.
Yeah.
But I don't always pounce on it for them, and I also, whenever one's coming out, I really weigh, okay, how much do I just want this game versus how much do I want this big shiny collector's edition?
Yeah,
because a couple of them is like, I love this, but I don't. It's because I love how they list everything that's in there. Shredder's Revenge. I'm a huge Team NT fan. I was so tempted by the special edition. I'm just like,
I didn't get the special edition, but I got the vinyl records, and that made me wait a few extra months. But they're great.
Yeah,
so Scott Pilgrim, I had to wait over a year because I got the biggest edition they had.
Yeah.
So I know how that goes.
I was so tempted, but ultimately I just got the game from them because I wanted that variant of it, which I had to wait for it. But again, as Nintendo pointed out, it's like that the open orders prevent bots. Because same as you, I remember when they had the very limited stuff, and I had to really weigh out. Okay, is this working? Thankfully, at that aquarium, I was off on Friday, so I was usually able to wake up in time and jump on the pre-orders. But the other thing, though, is that kind of with the digital stuff, kind of like Shellshock mentioned, I've been much better about holding off on getting a digital game because later they do come out with a physical release.
Yeah.
One case where I didn't do that was Thimbleweed Park, because I'm a huge point-and-click fan, especially of the old LucasArts one. I already have it on the Switch, and I'm like, physical edition? I got the collector's edition for PS4 and then the regular Switch cart, so I had to support this good point-and-click stuff, because it's a fun game.
Yeah.
And then some games I've got older copies of, and I get them on the new versions, like Star Wars Bounty Hunter and Episode 1 Racer. And then there's these other games, like Shellshock mentioned, indies. Mm-hmm. Some of these games I've never heard of. I'll look into it and then decide, do I want to jump on this or not?
Yeah.
That's where I'll like double dip and stuff sometimes is like when they re-release an older game on like a modern platform. Like once it's available, I'm buying Suikoden 1 and 2 remaster, even though I own the Suikoden games, luckily. But I want Konami to like keep making video games again.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm also getting Silent Hill.
That's a nice thing, though, is especially like I think that, I mean, the four of us, we already chat anyways. I think when it comes to some more of these collections, we can like have like even more of a specialized chat and be like, hey, what does the council think?
Ninja Turtles was a fun one. When that launched, I was like, I really want to order this. I want it physically on Switch. And I was like, well, I guess I'm going to have to wait for that. And then I got an email from Microsoft going like, hey, you've been with us for this long. Here's like a $10 off thing. So I looked at it. I was like, oh, I can go and get it today for only $12. Oh, I'll get that. So I was already playing it on my Xbox while I waited for my Switch version. I was like, cool, that makes it easier.
On the Switch, having the gold coins, that helps a lot too, because it's like, I forget about that sometimes. And then I'm like, oh yeah, I'm buying this game. I should probably apply these because otherwise I'll forget and they'll expire.
Which before I say anything, continue, Mantle.
I was just gonna say, I'm officially dubbing like the four of us, both for today and future stuff, we're the collecting council.
Sounds good.
I mean,
we'll be your collecting elder.
Yeah, like honestly, for me, the other thing I want to bring up is that in the case of like the Switch, they brought back they recently brought back the voucher program, which although in Europe and Japan, they've had it all this time since they made its debut 4 years ago. but for Switch, for North America, for whatever reason, it went away after 2019. But they
choice.
Which is a weird choice, but whatever. But they recently brought it back a couple months ago. So you could be able to spend $100 to get 2 vouchers on any first-party Nintendo game and any third-party game that they've published. Like, for example, like Octopath Traveler 1 being one of those games. It's only from games that cost $50 and up, which they introduced this back in 2019. Around I think they announced it around the time when Super Mario Maker 2 was coming, and now they brought it back because now that Tears of the Kingdom costs $70, a lot of people are taking advantage of it for that and are also getting other games. Me personally, I am going to be getting the vouchers because there's some stuff that I never got a chance to get, or that I'm going to pick up at some point, but because I'm going to be getting Tears of the Kingdom physically. But I will. But it's a nice option. So you save some money and still be able to get the games. So normally you would save if you buy two $60 games with the vouchers, you save $20. But if you get for example a $60 game and Tears of the Kingdom, you save $30. But which is great. So at least there's that. I like that. I just hope that they continue to keep the vouchers moving forward because at this point, I think we're getting closer to the end of the Switch's life cycle. So I think that's actually a really good way to just say, oh, hey, the Switch has been out for 6 years. Let's just keep this voucher system until the end of the life cycle, when it's over. So but yeah. So Babbitt?
I was gonna say the Switch because the pricing, how pretty much every first party game never drops in price. That's the big one where I take advantage of Target's buy two get one that they do all the time, or recently GameStop had a BOGO deal and it was really limited, but I got Octopath 2 and Skyward Sword, so $30 a piece if you break it down.
Amazing.
So and they were brand new. It was only on the new copies, so they were sealed.
Even better. Yeah, no, and I the voucher system is one of those things that most of the games that are on it I already have, but I'm a firm believer of even if it's something that doesn't benefit me, I'm happy it's there. That's just the same mindset I have whenever a Nintendo Direct comes out. I always go into Nintendo. I've loved every single one ever. For me though, I always go into every single one with zero expectations, and I have a blast with every single one. Yeah. And there's multiple games, and I'm sure this is the same for you three as well, where I have no interest in playing the game, but I'm hyped as hell that it's coming out because it looks neat.
Yeah, definitely.
And they show some of those collections of other stuff. Again, it's I have no interest in that game, but it looks neat. And some of the games my friends are like the fashion one that they're coming out with. I have a couple friends who are hyped, pouncing on it. And I look at it, I don't think I would play this, but that looks really fun, and I hope my friends have a blast.
Exactly. I see so many games, whenever something pops up that doesn't interest me, but I'm in the same room as other friends who are interested in that, I'm happy for them.
Yes.
Yeah. Nintendo made bank off my family. Oh, sorry about that. Go ahead.
No.
I was gonna say Nintendo made bank off my family when they dropped Metroid Prime. The remastered, because we bought 3 copies digitally that day, and then we ended up buying 3 physical copies because each of us wanted to have that.
I was patient with that one. I got it physical, but that was
I got the physical one because I still have my GameCube copy and then my trilogy copy. Funny thing with that though. Yeah, exactly.
I have all of those. Yeah.
Funny thing with that, when the Switch first came out, not sure if you guys remember this stat. Breath of the Wild was apparently selling at a 3-to-1 ratio. 3-to-1 Breath of the Wild cartridges versus Switch consoles. People were preparing for this even if they couldn't drop $300 on a new console. I was actually part of that problem because I got the Masters Collectors and Regular Edition. So...
Yes.
With 5 people, all of us playing games in our house, we end up buying multiple copies all the time, which is the other reason we like physical, because if we get one, we can share it. But then my daughter, we will buy her digital games, which is I need to look into that voucher stuff as well, because you know, like her Kirby games, I just go ahead and buy her digital copies so she has them on her Switch and ready to go because it's just easier for her.
Oh yeah.
To deal with that. So, yeah, that kind of goes back with the physical digital thing. Like, there's benefits to both.
Totally.
Yeah. So the next topic that I want to bring up, what were some of the best deals that you got from collecting video games over the years? And Mantle, we'll start with you.
So I was really excited when I saw this one on the documents. I actually touched on this one during the game rental chat, but I'm going to bring it up again. So one of my best deals ever. This was when I was in college. Now, when I was in college, the active Nintendo console was GameCube. The Wii didn't come out until my senior year. But basically, I had finally been able to bring my Super Nintendo, because I actually was only able to keep like my GameCube at college with me. My N64, Super Nintendo, and Nintendo stayed at my parents' house. But then thanks to a deal that I got this summer, no, those consoles finally started moving with me to my last dorm, and then to they've traveled with me everywhere ever since, and I have all of them hooked up at the same time. Super Nintendo. I had got my original Super Nintendo for my 8th birthday. Love the console. It's amazing, as we all know. This is when I had started trying to finally look into some more collectible games, because I'm in my late teens, early 20s. I'm starting to have money I can spend on things. And my dad, even though he's not as much a gamer, although he certainly got me into it, and he respects my interest, he knew some of these things I was looking for and would scour eBay for me. He knew that 2 games I was looking for were Chrono Trigger and Earthbound.
Yeah.
And even back in 2005, they were still pretty pricey. My dad found a lot on eBay, which included a Super Nintendo that had been modded to play both Super Nintendo and Super Famicom games. And this came with over 30 games. Mostly Super Nintendo, but a few Super Famicom. A couple of them I wasn't as fond of, like some of the earlier Dragon Ball Z fighting games, which I played around a little bit and then I sold them for a decent bit. One of the rare times I sold games. Again, over 30 Super Nintendo games. Included in this were near mint copies of Chrono Trigger and Earthbound. This entire lot. A fully functional modded Super Nintendo with all the hookups and controllers. Over 30 games. Over 30 games, including Chrono Trigger and Earthbound. $150. $150 for near mint copies of Chrono Trigger, Earthbound, and 30 plus other games. And the console.
Wow.
That is, I mean, I've got some damn good deals over the years. Like, I got a very good copy of Ikaruga for like $70 a few years ago. But, because I'd slept on it before then. But this one, to me, is still my absolute best. And then there's been other rare finds of good condition games I've gotten for a very reasonable price, and some of them it's like, wow, that's an absolute steal. But that one to me is just the highlight.
Yep.
Well, actually, there is one other as far as like rare finds go. This one I had got, I think for less than $70 at my home convention, an inbox copy of the original Legend of Zelda.
Nice.
Not
That's
sealed,
awesome.
not
Nice.
sealed, but still, like, as you can see, like it is a little bit worn, but
That's
it is.
still fine.
I mean, like there's a
Got
tiny
character.
yeah, it absolutely has character. I got this for like under $70 in box and everything, and yeah, I've got my original cartridge back there too. But the fact that I was able to find this for less than 3 digits,
Yeah,
I was pretty chuffed.
Nice.
definitely.
Oh yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So what about you, Zenspath?
So I have 5 deals I've gotten that have gotten me cussed out. So to start off, going back to the GameCube, do we all remember those lovely component cables
Oh,
that go for about $350?
Oh, yeah.
Still. I managed to find those mislabeled in the GameStop that had just opened, the one that I go to all the time. It had just opened up. Someone took them in and thought they were just Wii component cables, so I got them for $5.
wow.
Wow.
I saw that, picked it up, said nothing. I just immediately went over and just checked out, went outside, and then finally told them what I did as I was leaving. I laugh about it to this day.
Don't
No, I
chase
mean,
me.
I knew. They were just like, what? I was like, bye. The second thing that I managed to get a really good price on, this was at the Software Etc. that used to be in our mall near here. Friends with the guy that ran it, and someone had traded in, or they were trading in, a Neo Geo Pocket Color in the box with Sonic and a couple of the games. Beautiful condition, the nice light blue one. Love that thing.
Yeah.
They wouldn't take it anymore because this is after they had already discontinued it. But the guy didn't want to deal with it anymore, so he just left it there. So they looked at me like, "Do you want this?" So I walked out with all that. I still have it in the box, works great, all the games. Didn't pay a dime. Which was just right place, right time. Straight up for that.
Oh, wow.
Third one had to be, do you guys remember Resident Evil 4 had the chainsaw controllers?
Yes.
I managed to find both of those in their boxes complete. Still have them. $20.
Wow.
They just thought they were
I
awkward
slept
and
on that
uncomfortable.
controller. Yes,
Yeah, they were just like, it's weird to play games on. I was like, I don't care. Give me.
Yeah. It's cool.
So-
the cool factor builds.
I
Oh,
wish
yeah, no.
I wish I'd got one now, but I was trying to be more practical with it. But yeah,
I've only used it once to play anything on it. Like I messed around with them to try it out, but we had this very annoying, overly religious family that came by our house one day for some reason. So I decided to break out this little chainsaw covered in blood to play Smash Brothers in front of them.
that's
Which
amazing.
it sucks to play Smash Brothers, but the look on their face.
That is brilliant. I love everything about that.
Yes.
Yes. Who is familiar with a game called Steel Battalion?
I am.
Yeah.
Yes,
I've heard of it.
What was
I
the
still have
Capcom
it.
game?
Yes, it's probably one of the largest controllers in history. 40 different switches, 2 flight sticks, 3 foot pedals, everything on it. I had a guy who was in the Air Force near here, and he had that. The giant ammo crate box and everything.
Wow.
He was having to move, and he didn't want to keep it, so he wanted to trade for me, which I got this entire thing, was just for the Metal Gear Solid 4 Bluetooth headset. The little one that looks like his eye patch. That I absolutely hated it because it worked terribly, but he wanted it and was like, "Yeah, I'll give you this whole thing for it." I was like, that was the fastest I've ever gone. Here you go.
Wow.
Please.
Yeah, I've only seen that once in person, and it was at my old friend's game store back home when they had it traded in. They hooked it up, and we all got to mess around with it, but...
And mine, and it's still the launch green light edition. It's not the second run, which was the blue lights. The green ones were the first edition, so I'm just like...
Yes.
I mean, I don't have that, but on a fun collection thing that's not an actual game, I do have the laser scope, which my dad got me way back when the NES was still
Nice.
a console. So
that was
that
good.
fire. I
No
actually
offense, I would get really annoyed with that really fast.
well, no, nothing to apologize for. I actually would hardly use it for games. I just had fun with having it, but hilariously enough, sometime later, I'm actually in a Phoenix Wright mock trial group. We're on hiatus right now, but we did a very short Smash Brothers skit one time, and I was Fox McCloud in that, so I actually used that as my headset.
Oh,
That's
Lord.
awesome.
So the last one, this one I think is probably the best one I had that I get a lot of looks from. I have the Double Dragon Original Taito arcade cabinet,
Yes.
the Nintendo versus Super Mario Brothers, Nintendo versus Excite Bike, and Nintendo versus Golf.
Oh, wow.
My wife is actually the one that found this deal. Do you know how much, we'll just let the three of you guess, how much I paid for all 4 of these?
$150.
I was gonna say 200.
50.
Who's the closest out of all of us?
Patches, actually. I paid $90.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, it
for all
has to be
4 of
super
those
nutty.
machines.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was one of my wife's friends. I guess their dad was buying out a storage thing, and he paid $90 to be able to take over the storage. So he sold the arcade cabinets because he didn't want those, because there was like a $10,000 pool table and all this other stuff that was in there. So he just like, yeah, $90 for these machines, get them out of my way, and I've basically got all this stuff for free. So that's probably the best deal I've made, actually getting arcade machines for
That's
that.
amazing.
Yeah.
So those are the 5 things people usually curse at me for when they hear it.
I'm not going to curse you. I'm going to say that's amazing. And
Yeah.
that's fantastic. And if I ever happen to visit you, please show me. The Super Mario and Excite by Versus makes me really happy because that's actually the first time I ever played either of those games. was on that Versus. It
Yeah,
was at that
sad-
pizza place I mentioned before.
Sadly, the Double Dragon is still intact. I had to dismantle the other 3. I still have the boards and the chipsets and all the marquees and everything for it, so I'm consoleizing those right now. So they'll still be playable as arcade machines, but if you've ever seen a Nintendo Versus, the dual screen, those things are so massive.
Oh, that's what I was saying. That's the first time I ever played those games, and I know they are. And I still see them at MagFest every year because they always have a few of those consoles. I'm like, hi everyone, that's how I started playing Super Mario Brothers. But,
well, I kept the controls and everything to it, so I'm using all of these parts as I modify it, and I'm actually getting the adapter and wiring it up to use like a JAMA adapter so I can play these on the TV. So they'll have another life. They're coming back.
Yeah,
that's good.
I tried to limit it mostly to like games itself, but while Shellshock's typing that, I did actually as a good present for myself for one of my other biologist jobs, I found an in-box, not mint in-box, but still had the box with it, original Famicom system.
Oh, wow.
For like $200 before shipping.
Yeah.
Straight from Japan. And I have a few Famicom games, but because I've always wanted the original Famicom. And the fact that I found this one with the box for only slightly more than just the console. Sometime once I have it like out of box, I will absolutely take pictures to you guys, but
I know for a later bit that's kind of something in a little bit ahead, but like I'm still looking for one of those. Like I'm still trying to get a good Famicom.
Yeah.
I eventually want to get like an RGB modded Famicom.
Yep.
Oh, nice.
But that's down the road.
Yeah, I mean, it's like as far as because I know I was mostly focused on like the games itself aspect. I mean, there's so many things like the regular collection either I've gotten and I'm super happy with. There's a couple things I'm looking for, but it just let's face it, the games themselves are the big thing. But there's again, we all mentioned like all of our displays and background and everything, the merch as well as the peripherals and the consoles and everything. It is the best rabbit hole.
Like I said, I'm an engineer. I do console mods, so if anybody needs something, let me know.
Yeah.
Oh, you
I've done so many mods of my own.
Do you also fix like broken consoles as well?
Hmm?
All right, I'm gonna have to hit you up soon.
Okay, I'll see what you got and I'll see what I can do.
Okay, Patches. So my question now is for you. The best deals.
I got a few. One of them, I was out like yard sailing and just striking out. Like there was nothing. And then I walked up to this one and they had a ton of movies. And I was like thumbing through. I was like, maybe I'll find something good. And I found like 10 GameCube games. And I was like going through and there's nothing like big. It was like a Yu-Gi-Oh game, the Star Wars like Rogue Squadron games on there and stuff. It was like fun games, but nothing like, oh my God. But then I saw this little clear case and I picked it up and it was the GameCube Game Boy Player disc. They only wanted $2. So I was okay. I feel a little guilty, so I grabbed like 5 of the GameCube games. I'm like, I'll just buy all of these, and went and bought it. And like, I'm like, don't look it up while I'm buying. Don't look it up while I'm buying. But then I went and got like hit up one of the retro groups I'm in and picked up the player for like $10. I think 15 with shipping. So I have the whole player for $17 total.
Yeah,
so good.
It's like $150 now.
Yeah, I got it when it came out, but dude, that is fantastic.
Yeah, nice. It was nice. I know that like the jailbroken whatever system is technically a little bit better for it, like the custom firmware stuff that you can do. Yeah, but it's just easier to just have it. And then other than that, there was a time I was working, but my wife was out at this big community yard sale near our hometown. And I was working, and she was like, I was like, hey, if you find any video games, just shoot me a text, and I'll, like, tell you if you should buy them. And she's like, hey, like, there's all this, and it was, like, Smash Bros. Brawl and, like, a Wavebird and stuff. And she got, like, a bag full of games and, like, gaming things for, like, $10.
Oh, wow.
And there was, like, good games like Mario Sunshine and stuff in there.
Oh, yeah.
And when like she got a bag and then before she had like left there, she didn't get the receiver for the Wavebird. So I was like, hey, you should go back and look for something that looks like this and send her a picture. And the guy was like kind of grumbly about it because she didn't buy it at the time, but he did end up letting her take it. I was like, well, it's part of it. Come on.
Yeah.
Right. Come on.
Yeah, when I got home, I like opened the bag and there was like some 3DS games that she had grabbed like from there too. So I was like, this is a really good deal.
Yeah.
I also used to have a guy on the inside at Goodwill back
knows
home
that?
when I lived like around the corner pretty much from it. And so he was like in charge of all the sorting in the back and pricing. So he would just text me, be like pictures of the boxes of games and stuff, and be like, anything in here you want? I'm like, yes. And I'd send him the list, and then he'd be like, okay, be here in 10 minutes. I'm gonna go put them on the shelf. And he would price them at like $1 or $2. And so for a little while I was picking up like extra copies of higher end games and stuff for like
So cool.
dirt.
Oh yeah.
That was great. And then he had to go selfishly get a better job.
We all have those little connections that we use, like just guilt-free. Like, no, we're gonna abuse this while we can.
Oh,
Yeah. It was a few months. I got a lot of games out of it, but so it
Yeah.
was cool. Built up my collection, built up trade stock. Pretty much all the trade stock's gone now, but this is like 2018.
Yeah. Like, so best deals. There's a lot, but I'm going to narrow it down to a few that stand out to me the most. So I went to Long Island Retro Expo back in 2017, and I got Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles for the GameCube.
Nice.
And guess what? It was $10 with the manual and everything, and it's the regular version, not the player's choice.
How
Nice.
much does it
Oh,
go
even
for
better,
now?
dude.
I'm kind of
Nice.
curious.
How much does it go for? Around like 40, 50. I think it's probably going for more now, but for $10, I had to do it.
Oh yeah,
Um,
that's
No, that's a
actually
good
my
deal.
favorite Final Fantasy game.
Yeah. And I already
It was
have
a lot of fun.
and I already have the like the link cables for GameCube
Yeah.
to Game Boy Advance because I have another game. I already have another game that lets you play it, and that's Four Swords Adventures. I have that game.
Do it!
Yeah.
Yes!
Oh yeah.
So-
I went in all in on those.
So now I have Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles on GameCube for $10. That's a steal at this point.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
That's a good
this was way before the whole retro market went really off the rails.
Yeah.
So another deal, 2018, I actually got Final Fantasy VII for PS1, $10, and it's the original version of the game, not the greatest hits, manual, all 3 discs, everything, $10. The only
With a little misprint on the back.
yeah, the
I have the misprint one.
the only caveat to that is the fact that the jewel case is kind of a bit stiffy. It's kind of like starting to wear and starting to break a little bit. But otherwise, I still thought it was a really good deal. Like I could not say no to that. Like for Final Fantasy VII, for what people say is one of the greatest JRPGs in the history of video games, I couldn't say no. Although personally, I like Final Fantasy VI more.
I mean, fair.
And I like
Yeah.
I also like 9 more, but
But I like
yeah,
mine
yeah.
more.
but that's another
Yeah.
but that's another topic for another day.
Yeah.
Okay, you're right.
Yeah. So
6 and 9 are fun. 7 is pretty.
so
One. Yeah. I love 7. It has a special play because it was my first.
Right.
and
Since we're paused on that, since we're paused on Final Fantasy, I love Final Fantasy VII. I do not think it's overrated. I do, however, think it's put on too high of a pedestal. But it is absolutely worthy of praise and is a fun game.
Yeah.
I just have fun
One,
poking at it. Like I have no problem if somebody enjoys it. Like that's no
Oh yeah,
wrong with that.
same.
it's still a great
Like,
game.
Absolutely.
It revolutionized a lot of things. Like it was the
It
first
did.
like AAA game because it, like they put all the stops for marketing and stuff. Like the commercials were actually like, "Hey, this is actually an experience, not just like here's a silly, goofy thing." They still
Yeah.
did that marketing afterwards. but
Exactly. Yeah.
It wasn't. It started pushing like we can actually have this as a market, and for better or worse. Like we have good things, like really amazing experiences that come out, but then we also have kind of the shitty corporate like
Yeah.
nickel and dime everybody aspect.
Yeah.
So
I also bought Mega Man X1 for the Super Nintendo for about like $25. It was $20 to $25.
nice.
Yeah. And I normally see Mega Man X1 go for somewhere within like the 30s to the 40s. Because that one's a lot more common compared to X2 and X3, which Zenspath, I know you have the whole Super Nintendo trilogy.
Yes. Yep. Same.
I had a friend. I didn't include this in my thing because he never told me how much he paid for it, but he gave me all 3 of those for a Christmas/birthday present. All 3
Nice.
games, and I was just like, "Dear God, how much did you pay?" He's like, "I'm not gonna say." Remy?
Like X2 is very expensive, and X3 is on Super Nintendo even more expensive.
I was super lucky with the Mega Man X games because I got them before the N64 came out still.
Mhm.
I was unfortunately, however, later to playing them for whatever reason. And X, my dad was able to find with not too much. X2, he found X2 before he found X and X3 for me, which was really funny.
Yeah.
And I actually like X2 the most. But X3 was super hard to find, but we still found it for like pretty close to MSRP back in the day.
Nice.
So
Nice.
I was stoked. And I mean, I'm also glad that Shellshock issue mentioned Final Fantasy VII because I have that exact same copy you mentioned, but I got it after the fact. Not $10 good, but I got it for about $60.
Yeah.
And it's still in like new condition.
Yeah.
So,
that's like some of the games, like they weren't like necessarily great deals at the time. Like it was like going around MSRP. Like I have pretty much all the Silent Hill games, and I got the main 4 before like the prices exploded, and I think the most I spent was 60 on one, but I got pretty much all of them for under $100.
Yeah.
And now like the cheapest is like 100.
Yeah, no, it's so crazy that for all 4 of us, like seeing like somebody. Sorry to interrupt. For all these games though, that seeing like that we got either when they came out or not too long after they did, and still for good deals. Like the Mega Man X ones, like for all of us, no matter what our story was with that. Another one for me, which I've alluded to before, was Super Mario RPG. I balk every time I see what the price of it is going for. And I got that game. I remember this is one of the few games I got, not for birthday or Christmas, that my dad took me to Toys R Us to get. And we got it. Yep, exactly. Yep. Mine's over on the shelf. Day one. Well, around day one. And sitting nice in there. And
I just got that game back in February.
Nice!
I had credit at my friend's store a couple hours away, and then I'd gotten birthday money. So I was like, you got that in? Does it save? And thankfully I asked that before I left because they checked it and had to swap the battery.
Yeah.
So one question, as a collector, I think the 4 of us, like Devil's Third, that's one that I got. I was one of the few people in the area that even ordered it. I got it. That thing is ungodly expensive now. I paid just normal price for it. But do you guys find you kind of learned to look and be like, I need to get this, even though it's brand new, I'm paying full price, but it's going to be hard to get. It's going to go up.
Yeah.
And you kind of have that spidey sense or collector sense of like, I need to go ahead and pay that money.
Well, I've absolutely gotten that. Funny story for me with that. I had pre-ordered it as soon as pre-orders went up at my local GameStop, because this is when I was in my first city in Texas, because again, I have to move around for work. And the thing is though, they never got it in stock.
Oh.
So, and then basically it's like, they knew I had my pre-order, but the store just never received any. And it just literally they never received any. So finally, it's been about a month, I'm waiting on my damn game, and I finally said, screw this. I hopped on eBay, found it literally for $59.99 new, bought it right there, and as soon as it arrived, I said, hey, can we transfer my pre-order credit to this game? And they said, yeah, sure. I said, thanks. It was just, it's like...
Yeah.
I still got it at that price, and after, as I know all of us were looking at the Wii U eShop closing down, I was telling everyone, like, hey, if you didn't already get this game, go ahead and get it. Here's why.
It's terrible. It's stupid. You're gonna laugh.
It's hysterical.
Well,
I still need to play it, but yeah, sorry.
Oh no, you're good. I grabbed the Mario 3D collection, even though everybody was like making fun of it, being like, "Oh, it's not that limited. It's not that limited." And I'm like, "Well, now that it's not easily available, it's starting to spike up to like $100+. I'm like,
I
there's a lot of
got 2
out
copies,
there,
one to
but...
play and one to hold on to for that.
Well, I was actually going to bring up that one because I was going to mention real quick that there have been times where I would go to some Best Buys or Targets or some other stores that sell video games, and I still see sealed copies of Super Mario 3D All-Stars for for the standard price of $60 sitting on shelves. As if no one bought it, and I'm not talking about like 1 or 2 copies. I'm talking about like
a significant amount.
Yes, like 20 something, maybe 30.
Insane.
That's what you keep checking, and then as soon as they
pick
clearance it out, you just go wipe it out.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna send you some money to pick one up for me. I got a friend who's looking for one, and I'm like, good luck.
If I see it, I will tell you. I will let you know immediately. I will let you know.
That's like Trails of the Cold Steel. I actually picked it up because I remember seeing like people saying how difficult it was to find the physical release, and then GameStop had the like collector's edition. It was used, but it had all the stuff in it. So I was like, it was like $50, I think. So I was like, yeah, I've never played this.
I still need to jump into that because a couple of my close friends really love it. It's
such a big thing. That's why I'm like, I haven't played through the series because it's like 10 games or something like that now.
Well, let's face it, we all understand the backlog. It's a good problem to have, though. I have come to terms with the fact that I will never complete my backlog, and I am completely content with that.
I plan on dying with lots of extra to play. Like, I'm going to go out having enjoyed every minute of it.
Same, absolutely same. I try to like do as much as I can, but I'm more focused on, as much of a completionist as I am more focused on the enjoyment of it than I am, I have to get everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And it's not just me. Like, I have the collection, but it's not... Like, I have every Fire Emblem game. Every single one of them.
Same.
I don't like Fire Emblem that much, but it was fun to go for that set. But my oldest loves Fire Emblem, so he goes in and he'll play them. So I'm like, it's still being enjoyed. It's still being played.
Yeah.
I have it. I can look at it like that's cool, but... You know, it's being used. It's not always, doesn't have to always be me.
Exactly. Well, I say this both as someone who lives by themselves and will never have kids because I have no interest in it. But I love Fire. I love Fire Emblem. And even if your eldest didn't enjoy it, the fact that it has a loving home like that still means something to me because I'm not so much as like, oh, it has to be played. And even though I'm not like the old Dexter's Lab episode in RFB, I know all of us very much do live by the games are meant to be played. We all understand even more they're meant to be enjoyed.
Yes.
Yeah. And I only have like a small handful of unopened games for very particular reasons.
Oh yeah, same.
Everything else, I'm like, just play it.
Yeah.
And Fire Emblem is my 5th favorite series of all time, and I absolutely love it. But hey,
I always preferred Advance Wars, and I am so happy right now.
No, I'm sure you are.
We waited a year for Advance Wars to finally release on Switch. I have it. I've been playing it off and on. I will eventually stream it myself.
We need to play each other then.
Yeah. Like my buddy Shad JV, he loves Advance Wars, and he's just absolutely like hyped for the game. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad it's out now too because I gave away my copies because I liked it. It was a fun game, but one of my friends, he loved it and he lost his copy. So I was like, "Oh, there you go, Merry Christmas."
Yeah, that's really sweet. I need to look into getting it at some point, but I'm holding off, especially because I know I'm about to get lost in Hyrule for at least a few weeks. But I actually only ever played Days of Ruin. On the 3DS, on the DS, and I enjoyed it. I actually wound up selling it. Again, I very rarely sell games, but I realized it's like I love this. It was fun. I've beaten it. I'm not sure when I'll play it again. And this was like one of the more tricky times. But I actually still got a really good deal for it. So I've extremely rarely sell games, but this one I felt was reasonable.
Yeah,
and especially with the reboot camp, I'm just like, we'll see what happens.
Well.
It's a great series.
Yeah, I want to address a comment from Nintendo in my chat. Fun fact, Advance Wars Boot Camp, people have said that you can't get your gold coins for it since the time has expired, since it's out in a warehouse most likely. Well, for me, I was able to redeem the gold coins, and there have been people who also redeemed the gold coins. Though, from what I've heard from that person who said that originally in regards to those reports, it was somebody from Europe. So I'm not sure they fixed it over there, but for North America, I was able to redeem it, like get the 60 coins, and that's it. And well done. And gold coins are not cosmetics; those are basically for your eShop. So you could just add more to your eShop, so you could be able to have like more money. Which I'm getting closer to $30 in gold coins, and I'm actually saving up to reduce the amount of how much the vouchers cost, because I'm going to use that for the vouchers. So the thing is that there was actually like an eShop sale from there was a thing like eShop from November 1st 2022 to January 31st 2023, where everything that you buy on eShop was double the money. So people were just looking at their eShop accounts and they were wondering, how do I have this many gold coins? And it's like, And I know someone who had like I think $50 after like once the news was breaking out. Like how did I have this much? And it turns out they were buying games from sales and getting some games for Christmas or some other birthdays during that short window. And it's amazing. Like, because I'm gonna say this right now. If you have gold coins in your Switch eShop, take advantage of it as much as possible.
Yeah, they'll expire.
Yeah.
They do expire, so take advantage of it as much as possible. That's why, again, the moment I have enough money for the vouchers, it's going to go straight to that. I'm going to be using that to get 2 games, and that's that. I do want to bring up one more deal before we go on to the next thing. So I remember a time when Toys R Us used to have buy 2 games and the third game you get is free of equal or lesser value.
Yep.
I remember getting like just so many deals from that. Like, it's a huge list, but so many games from like specifically from the Wii era, the Xbox 360 era, like PS3 and all that. I took advantage of that way too many times. But there was a deal that I did but nothing compares to the deal that I had from Newegg.com back in 2012. I got Rhythm Heaven Fever for the Wii for $5.
Holy,
Yeah.
nice.
The other night. That's a fun one.
Yes. And I told my buddy Silverstone Condor, he's a speedrunner in Rhythm Heaven Fever. I think he got that same deal from at that same time, and yeah. Oh my god.
I have to ask him about this because I love Silverstone.
Yeah, one of the best deals. Rhythm Heaven Fever, fantastic game on the Wii. $5, that's a great deal. Which
absolutely
which I don't know what exactly can I actually get that will beat that.
That's amazing.
It is.
I love all these stories because I know we've all gotten some deals, but these highlights are just.
Yeah.
Oh man, they're
definitely
so
fun.
funny.
Yeah. So now we'll go to the next topic before we get to the community questions. So how much has video game collecting meant to you? Let's start with you, Zenspath.
So, like I said, collecting for me, like I said, the whole library analogy, it's been something I feel like I can kind of build up, learn about, share with other people, because we have different people that view the community in different ways for gaming. So it's kind of like a representation of like, hey, here's this whole world of this entertainment, these things you can get into. And, I want to gather these things together to share with others, means of preservation and other projects I work on. And it's also just kind of the ooh shiny, look what's in my room.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Let's be honest here. Because growing up, you talked about what was it? Your birthdays you would get Mantle, that you would get something on your birthday and then later you had Christmas. Well, for me, that's the same day. So while my brother and sister, their birthdays are like early middle of the year, Christmas at the end. They always get something separate. Me, I would get a game a year. That's it. It was for both. And whether it was good or bad, I remember the one that got me, where I found an interest in it, but it was kind of not the best one. I got Spy vs. Spy for NES. I wanted it. Beat it the same day, and I sat there going, what have I done? And, so I kind of held on to it, trying to find other things, and would try and make like deals with other kids to try and get a hold of stuff. And I think that's part of what kind of now I can just surround myself with all these games, but I try and have more of an actual purpose to it. But in the end, it's all about just, look, I have these things here to mess with.
Yeah, exactly.
So I try and at least have some reasonability with it.
Yep.
And I have had over the years, like, family kind of push back on this before. I had a purge of my game collection like years back because my mom at the time You know, she kind of viewed it as like, oh, you need to grow up, you need to be responsible, you got a family and kids, and she convinced me to get rid of a bunch of my collection, like all of my NES games were gone, all of this stuff. My wife found out, she was pissed.
Wow.
Chewed out my mom.
I'm so sorry, dude.
Well,
I am
she's
sorry.
been hunting for him ever since, but ever since then, I'm just like, okay, no, my wife is cool with it, so this is not a problem, you know.
Yeah.
And
If
everything.
you're paying your
So-
bills and like,
Oh yeah, all that
your
stuff. always
family's
comes
happy.
first.
Absolutely.
So we kind of enjoy doing that. So collecting's kind of done a thing with that, and it's a healthy hobby for me. I think it's you know, something I can enjoy doing that actually has a meaning to it. And if something comes up and like we do need financial issue, like, you know, we have to save the house or pay a medical bill, so be it. I'll sell it. There's a reason. So yeah, collecting, I think, is just a healthier thing for me to do for a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Definitely.
All right. What about you, McPatches?
Yeah, it's definitely a special like thing to me. I collect mainly for play. Like, there's definitely points where I'm like, that's a good deal. I'll pick that up. And like, worst case, I don't like the game, and then it goes towards a game that I want that's more expensive. But I've been pretty into it for a long time. I remember when I was younger, one of my friends had a pretty sizable collection, and I was like, always like, I would love to get more into collecting. So like, as I grew up and stuff, I kept more and more games. A lot of my games, I don't have as much of a sentimental connection to the copies that I have, because like various copies were stolen by people, like trusting bad, like terrible people, or trying to help friends that are like fallen.
I've had
friends. But I've replaced a lot of them, and so the game itself still has that sentimental like connection. But it's the same with like, if ever there was an emergency, I have a decent backlog of money. If I had to cash out, it would be a pain, but I'd be able to go hit up friends be like, hey guys, I need money. Here's the collection.
Yep.
For sure.
Yeah. What about you, Mantle?
For me, collecting is very similar to what both Zenspath and Patches have said, where for me it's fun. It's a part of my biggest interest, my biggest hobby, and being able to continue to collect on that and add to that. Because every single game I have, I play, or at least intend to play, and I can always look back at that for memories. Because I'm sure you guys all get this, as well as everyone in chat too, where sometimes you don't know why, but you just get this random urge to play a game you've not touched in years, and you can just easily grab it and pop it right in.
Yes.
So yes, we all do
asked
that.
about it. You're like, oh, let me show you that.
Exactly, and then sometimes like a game that you loved growing up at whatever time, and you still have all those great memories attached to it, and then you've got a friend who you didn't know way back then, but you realize, hey, this. I guess I'll just say, for example, one of my closest friends, she and I've only known each other for a little over a year now. She loves Little Mermaid, actually cosplays a beautiful Ariel, although she's repurposed the wig now. She never played the NES game, and let's face it, the NES Little Mermaid is actually a really solid game. I was even talking about this with my dad earlier, because he got it for me, because he says that it's an amazing game, because it was. And she's younger than the NES era, so she's never seen it, but she is hyped as hell for me to tell her, like, hey, I think that she would enjoy seeing this, and her being able to like, oh my gosh, that sounds fun, is just there. And then she's all, oh, I never played Little Mermaid, but I played Aladdin. I, of course, asked her which version, so then that pipes that interest. So for me, it's continuing to build on what I love and enjoy, and for those bonds with friends. It's also, and video games, this might sound like a bit of a random tangent, but before the stream, my compliment patches on his shirt, and I'm also wearing a geeky gaming shirt. My mom, which I'll come back to in a bit, she is often like, well, why do you wear such and such like that? Well, first off, my clothing as well as my video games, they're not just something I enjoy. I have a lot of memories attached to that.
Yeah.
The Legend of Zelda, I mentioned earlier, is my favorite game series of all time. And not only for the memories that I have with that, I've met some of my coolest and closest friends thanks to it, including my best friend. I met my best friend thanks to Legend of Zelda, because we were both RP and Zelda characters on a multiverse crossover forum. And she's been my best friend for over 12 years now.
Nice.
And it's just, the games bring people together. I mean, I met all three of you because we love video games.
Yes.
Yeah. And So, and collecting for that, it's never a matter of showing off. It's like, oh, hey, look at me, I've got this. But it's a matter of like, hey, I think you'll appreciate this.
Yep.
And then you show off. But I mean, and my answer's gonna bounce around a little bit, and I apologize for that. Part of it's because you've just reminded me of so much more stuff. And Zenspath, like you mentioned again with the birthday Christmas thing.
Yeah.
Again, I am fortunate that my birthday's the halfway point, especially because growing up, I could only ever get games. I'm sorry. Well, funny you say that though. My mom's birthday is 4 days after yours. And she hates her birthday because it gets lost between Christmas and New Year's. Between that as well as her disliking winter, my little sister and I were extremely well planned down to the point of being June babies. So yes.
Yeah.
But well, actually I'll say this. I share a birthday with the release of a Zelda game, which is crazy because very few games come out early summer. The original Link's Awakening came out on my 8th birthday.
Oh, nice.
It sounds like your parents have better control of release dates than Nintendo does sometimes.
Yeah. That's actually... Wow.
That was brilliant. You know, I would agree with that. But I was also a 25-hour labor, so...
Ooh.
I didn't say the release night would be easy. I just said they would hit that date.
Yeah, I was an emergency C-section.
Look, they got you there. FedEx was slow. Okay, that's not their fault.
Anyway,
beautifully played. But I love my mom, I do. But while my dad, he's not huge into games, although he does have a modded NES Mini, and he still loves and enjoys that from time to time. And I've mentioned before on this channel, even though the first console I've ever owned was my NES, first one I ever played was my dad's Atari 2600. So that's how he knew. It's like, yeah, Mantle's gonna enjoy these growing up. But for birthday, Christmas, I would usually be able to pick out 4 to 5 games maximum. That's what I would get along with it. But as I got older, especially between high school and really once I was in college and even once I graduated, my mom, like every few years, she would just, you're such and such age, you don't need video games. You're such and such age, you don't need video games. And it never tried to make me give it up. Like she tried to very unsuccessfully make me give up anime. Which I also met very close friends thanks to.
Everything behind you seems to say that failed.
Yes. but it was, well, it kind of came to a head because when I was 27 that year for Christmas, I didn't know what all I wanted. I asked for 2 PS3 games. He's like, you're 27 years old. You don't need these games. It was apparently more acceptable to ask for a new iPad in 2012 than it was for 2 PS3 games. So I got the iPad, but hilariously enough, though, my dad, I was home since I was off work for the month because of the temp job.
Right.
Well, it was full-time temporary. It was the government's way of getting full-time labor without paying benefits. You just had to take a month off. Anyways.
Yeah.
Right.
He knew this whole thing. He knew it was bullshit. And he'd come back from an errand at one point and was saying something. He's like, oh yeah, and by the way, here's the 2 games Mom didn't want you to have. Merry Christmas. He just hands it to him. But and I'm glad that you guys mentioned that with collecting stuff because there is no age limit on what you enjoy, especially if you're not hurting anyone with it. You're not hurting yourself. In video games, let's face it, they are an amazing storytelling medium. So that's part of what collection was, because every one of these games, looking at my collection, it has a story attached to it. It has a story attached to it. I've got those memories attached to it. Like I said, I've met really awesome people thanks to it. And I never want to let that go. Yeah. And I, especially as I'm, again, that close friend, the Ariel friend, she recently said, because we were talking about me having a lot of games, and I said, yeah, that is being a grown-up and making very grown-up decisions. And she said, hey, being an adult sucks half the time, so if you've got the money to spend it on things you enjoy, more power to you. And even one time, and for both video games, that one time my grandfather, my mom's dad, because they both email, but they're both very controlling, tried to, well, Mantle, well, you're such and such age. When are you going to get out all this stuff? And I just looked at him and said, Granddaddy, how old are you? Well, I'm 79 years old. He's older now, and I said, okay, when are you giving up baseball? And because he's been a baseball fan since he was a kid. I mean, he actually was in the minor leagues and could have gone major, but he had weak ankles. And I explained that to him. It's like, there's no age limit on this. Just because you hit an arbitrary age, why should you suddenly give up something that you enjoy? Yeah. And he's never bothered me about it since.
Yeah.
So
fair point.
And it's just this is something that we all enjoy. And again, I have made friends, you three, many people in chat, any other friends I've referenced, thanks to these interests. And
Yes.
the collection helps foster that, because touching back on the physical thing, I've learned this, especially working at an aquarium, humans are tangible creatures. We have to see something for it to be real to us, much less for us to care about it. And the physical aspect of that really helps out. So again, I'm sorry this went in all these directions, but for me, collecting means holding on to, building, and being able to return to these memories, and also sharing these memories. And the funniest thing about it is, all three of you have also experienced, I'm sure too, sometimes you accidentally collect something that means something to you at the time. It means even more. I was a big Zelda fan before I even fully realized I was.
Yeah.
The first one, I was aware of the original ones, but the first one I ever played was Link to the Past. My favorite's Ocarina of Time. Now, I actually, even though I was hyped because I was following it when we just knew it as Zelda 64 and Nintendo Power, because I remember us discussing that on that previous sharing with Shellshock last year, I don't know why, but even though I was trying to condense things as much as I could from my limited storage space in the playroom at home, I held on to my box from my collector's edition that Christmas.
Oh, I still got mine.
That's awesome.
It's open. I still have my little hand guide for it, and my cartridge is sitting there in a nice plastic storage case, but I still held on to this. And it's one of those things, it's like, again, we all just kind of have that in us, and it's like Shellshock mentioned, sometimes you just realize you're a collector, and regardless of it saying collector's edition, it's just, I wanted to hold on to it. I still have my original gray cartridge box too, but it just, collecting is an extension of that biggest hobby, and it makes me happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
for me, it means a lot to me because I have so many memories with owning and collecting so many different games across multiple platforms over the years, whether it's Nintendo, Sega, Sony, Microsoft. I've played so many games over the years. I've collected them. Games I used to have that I ended up buying back. Games I used to have that I unfortunately don't have anymore because either they got lost, stolen, or I sold it, or I lent it to someone and haven't contacted them in years and still haven't heard from them in a while. So it'd be just awkward just to message them and say, "Hey, can I get my copy of such and such game back?"
Depends on the game.
Yeah. But yeah. I just want to take the time to address something. So I posted a TikTok last night where like someone asked like, what did like your boomer parents did that your like 30-something-year-old like do to buy like all this stuff. They said toys.
I saw where you shared this on Insta.
Yes, and what happened was, what I said is that my NES games disappeared as a kid, like when I moved to the place that I'm currently living at now, because I lived here for about like over 25 years now. And so my brother actually remembered what happened to the NES games. Because the NES was broken, they were just left in the closet. And even though the plan was to take them, but they were just left there. And I'm thinking, I wish I had the foresight to just take them anyway, because some of the games are expensive. I bought some of them back, like at later times in my life. Like I have Super Mario Bros. / Duck Hunt again. I have Mega Man 3 again. But it's going to be hard for me to get Contra because that's like $40, $50. And if I'm going to have to take a look at what else I own, like the games I don't care to ever buy back. There's a Muppets game on NES, which I do not like at all. There was the Karate Kid, and arguably the worst of them all, Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Oh no!
That game, which was...
I
And you wonder who made Who Framed Roger Rabbit on NES? I know LGN published it, but you wonder who made it? Rare. Rare made it.
No.
And the composer
Rare made a lot of stuff.
and the composer was David Wise. And guess who LGN contracted to make the Karate Kid for the Karate Kid? You'll never guess. It was Atlas.
Oh.
I think the composer worked on some of the Shin Megami Tensei games. Well, Atlas was a relatively new company at the time. I mean, you got to start somewhere.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So, but yeah, so that's what happened to my NES games, and then like I responded with, so look at this now, like I have all these games right here, and I do not.
It was a beautiful video.
And I do not apologize for it one bit. I still stand by that, but I just want to make it perfectly clear that the NES games, they did not just disappear. They were just left in a closet while we moved. We just didn't go get them, so that's it. And I'm kicking myself for that, although not as much because I do have some of the games. I will eventually have to figure out how to get the other games. But in terms of impact, they impacted me in so many ways, so many different stories that I could talk about, and so many memories with games, especially when I would buy like or get gifts from like birthdays, Christmas, or whenever I would do good at school. I would get some of these games, and if it's not me, it would be my younger brother who would get some of these games, and we would share the games. We would like take turns playing them. But for me, it means a lot to me because I have a lot of sentimental value for some of these games, and it pains me whenever some of these games were stolen, and it pains me when I've actually sold some of the games. Like, for example, I regret selling Soul Calibur 2 for GameCube.
Oh,
Well,
that's the one with Link in it, isn't it?
Yeah,
yes,
it is.
but
That's the first one I played.
another big one was SSX Tricky, which I regret selling that. One of the best snowboarding games ever.
Oh man.
Like,
Yeah.
keep your games as much as you can. If you have to sell because you need the money, that's one thing. But if you're in a position where you can keep your games, please do it. But like in regards to people collecting, if people ask me if they should collect, the answer is it's up to you. If you can afford it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, very, very, very well said on that. And I agree with all three of you for that. It's just like, because collecting in anywhere between what we're enjoying with it, like just as we all said, we all sit back and look at it, it's like, man, look at this, and it makes me happy to
Right.
actively pulling one off the shelf and playing it. To be like, hey, if you got this, like again, Zenspath and I, we bonded because we both collect stuff, and we will mess it back and forth. Like, hey, he's like, yes, I have, and we both geeking out back and forth because we know what it is.
Yeah.
And all of us here, like, how many times as one of us mentions something, and the other three are, oh yeah, because we recognize. And this right here is another reason what collecting means to me is connecting and bonding. Because again, games are the base. This is the extension of it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Two things I wanted to add to that. You were talking about for if you should collect, one thing I've written about before, if you're going to collect, just, make sure it's in a healthy way where if it becomes a burden, like you have to balance between your bills and other stuff, maybe you're not ready to be collecting at that time, or maybe limit to a smaller thing to get that collecting in.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, it sounds like each of us we probably all have games or other items that may not be rare whatsoever or in perfect condition or so forth, but that one particular physical one means more by itself. Like I have a copy of King Arthur's World on the Super Nintendo. It's still got the stickers on it from when it was purchased used from a rental place.
Yeah.
That's a game that my aunt, my mom's twin sister who died a long time ago, she got for me when I was staying with them in Virginia for a little bit. And it's the first kind of strategy game I ever played, and I loved it. But that cartridge, I don't care if you gave me a brand new in the box, that cartridge is the one that's going to mean the most to me because of that. And if that was stolen, that would hurt more than if you took my, in the box Zelda Collector's Edition. Like, that sucks. I could replace it, but that's not that particular thing,
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's a whole different thing. Where value is but what you give it.
Oh, absolutely. 100% on that. And it's like, I know we all have games and stuff like that. And for me, I do remember, like, we're pretty much each of mine's like, oh, this one was from my parents, or this one was from Santa.
Right.
This one was from my friend. And even though my little sister and I aren't super close, she's kind of redeeming herself out of her villain arc right now, so I can still look at any game. No, I'm dead serious. Like, that's the best way I can describe it. She will, like, for birthdays and Christmas, really, I was like, hey, what do you want? Because she's 3 years, 2 days younger than me. So we pretty much mostly talk around then, but she'll usually ask for a gift card. I'll ask for something specific because it's like, yeah, you're going to give me something geeky. But even though with that villain stuff I mentioned, it still means like, hey, she's still got this because it's what I asked for.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. I do. And But I'm glad you mentioned that thing about how much it means, because whether for giving or receiving stuff like that, the attachment and that sentimental value and meaning behind it is very big. Because again, I mentioned I met my best friend thanks to The Legend of Zelda. She and I are kind of at a point with finances right now where we're kind of like chill on Christmas and birthday. Sometimes it's like, hey, we doing anything this year? If not, cool. But one year when we were like really big into giving that stuff, I gave her like this whole treasure trove of like just various Zelda things, including a whole bunch of handmade things on Etsy, like some really nice versions of the Goddess Pearls from Wind Waker, because that's her favorite Zelda.
Yeah.
And when I was visiting her last year, because she's married now, and lives in a house with her husband, seeing various things I've given her over the years displayed in her house and seeing where they're displayed is just like, wow. Because, like, to me, it's like, I know that we're best friends, but it's still just like, just really hits right there. And one of my own personal ones, not a game, but one of my closest friends, who is unfortunately no longer with us because fuck cancer.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
He was a very good friend of mine. I'll just, with respect to him, I'll use his alias. It was a Dragon Slayer. He was just as big into Zelda as I am. That's how he and I bonded. We have this whole big wholesome story about how we spent Hyrule Warriors release weekend for the Wii U. I'll share that another time. But we also, before Hyrule Warriors came out, we were both really huge into Smash, because Smash was how we bonded before Zelda kicked off even bigger for us. I had not been able to get the pre-order Best Buy. I got the GameStop one. I didn't get the gold coin. He had gotten a pre-order for himself as well as someone else who didn't care as much about the coin. And I know I could have hopped on eBay sometime later and got it. He and I were driving back to his place, and we're just talking about it stuff, and he's like, you know what? I'm going to give this to you. Because he and we would constantly play Smash Brothers together. Because his reason is like, well, I know our friend I picked this up for, they just want the game. They're not going to appreciate this the way you are. So I'm giving this to you. And he's gone now. So that thing is always very carefully packed with me wherever I move, whenever. And similar to that, even my Amiibo. I have a huge Amiibo collection because he and I jumped on that hugely.
Yeah.
And I've gotten every single Smash Amiibo, Zelda, Splatoon, and a few others. Sorry, not to get too heavy. This is also part of where the collecting comes into play.
No, I got a story as well when you're done. So
because the Amiibo add to it, and I know all three of us. Well, sorry, I was looking at all three of you, and Lee, all four of us. Amiibo also add to that, because I always describe those as Amiibo as figures to life done right. Because as we all know, they not only are they really high quality and look really awesome, they reward you if you own them, but they don't punish you if you don't own them.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy that Nintendo is still doing them. As we remember in Smash Brothers, you could actually program train your fighter. He and I both trained up. I trained up my Ike, he trained up his Link to be deadly. And the weekend that he passed away, I actually happened to be visiting with his widow and our friends, and she gave me his Link Amiibo, not to have, but to babysit. I was able to plug him in Smash and fight with his work again.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Okay.
So, I mean, and obviously, as we all know with Amiibo, you have the option of do you want to save or not. So I always say, no, I'm not going to save.
Right.
But at some point, I'm going to copy. I mean, I've got his widow's permission. I'm going to get one of those file writers and copy the data for his. But again, it's just those connections, whether it's the game itself, connected to it, peripherals, and again, the library, the memories, the accessibility, the connections.
If you can't find one of the file writers, let me know. I have one. I'll send it to you and let you use it. That way you can at least get the files.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I'll keep you posted on it. But yeah, it's just not to like jump around for that much of a life. Even just with the collection, that's part of why I love chatting with you guys on here. I love seeing the collections behind you, because it's just, I love admiring it. I'm looking at all these things in here. Now. I love chatting it with you. I'm excited to share mine with all of you once I've got it more updated, because I've shown previous versions. And again, collecting is connecting. Yep.
And real go ahead.
Go ahead. I was just going to say, the whole connection thing brought up the thought to me. Like, I moved over to the West Coast. Like, I lived in Washington area, like between Idaho and Washington, but I moved over by Seattle, and I didn't really know anybody. I have a couple friends that moved over here over the years, but I was in a Seattle like retro group, and I ended up connecting with one of the admin, just like chatting about games, and now he's become one of my like best friends over the last couple like years.
That's awesome.
I have a lot of great memories of gaming with him. He's the guy that opened the shop that I went down to Portland and sold games with, and yeah, there's other friends that I made through that bloomed out and stuff now, but just those connections. It's like a lot of my friends over the years were friends because of like connections with gaming, like so.
Yeah,
that adds to the importance.
Yeah. So the other thing I wanted to bring up is that if anyone if anyone has any collections that they want to ever show off, as you can see, the link right there is there's a Discord link. I have a collections channel, so you can just post anything that you get. Like if you just got something cool or you just want to show off your collections, it's there. So feel free to check it out in the Discord. But before we go into the community questions, you said you had a story that you wanted to share real quick, Zenspath?
Yeah, we were talking about people that are no longer with us. Once again, cancer.
Yeah.
Same reason. It's my little brother, Ian. There was a 10-year difference in age between us, 12 years between me and my sister. So it was always a little weird on that one. But he developed a brain tumor a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And while we were working through that and everything, we were kind of getting close again because we've always been kind of separate for a lot of stuff. And, we'd go into our love of like Battlestar Galactica and other stuff. And the only things that he gave me when he passed, because he wanted me to have, which, I wasn't trying to take a bunch of stuff or everything. Like we were doing what we wanted with that, but he wanted me to have these, as I have his Battlestar Galactica model, about yay big, it's on the shelf over there, and the Cylon ship, which both of them are kind of broken, like missing antennas, it'll come in half. But those were something that kind of got me started on writing about collecting. And I apologize if this is kind of weird, but it's kind of a plug as well. But I'd written an article that I'd called Personal Collections, Those with True Meaning, talking about how items in your collection will be for stuff like that, that if anything in this room, even those are just two little ships sitting there, those remind me of him every day. So when I walk in, that's one of the first things I see in this room are those. Yeah. And, like you were talking about, your friend had the item that you got them in that kind of place, and it struck you with how that was, and you find yourself kind of doing that at like places of honor and ways to remember. And just kind of showing how collections, even in those means, for any type of thing of what it is, can bring you back those memories, or at least connect to it in a way as best you can. And I had kind of a messed up story of how I had to get to these, because my dad and I are not on the best of terms for a lot of stuff. And I'm not going to go into all that on this. This is not the place for that.
Yeah.
This has been a great, happy conversation.
Oh, yeah.
But we'll just say it was a mess for how I had to get these, and basically had to ransom them.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, that was all I wanted to bring up about the collection of things for people that are gone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Again.
No. Thank you for that.
No.
That's why Shellshock
Yeah.
these amazing spaces.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. So, community questions. All right, in fairness of time, we're gonna speed through some of these.
Sorry.
No. It's fine. It's all good. It's all good. It's a fun conversation. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
So,
collecting stories.
Exactly. Wispy Skies asks, are you highly into video game collecting? If so, do you collect online for physical places? This is the topic, so yes, that's number one. So
Yeah.
let's answer part two of that one. Do you collect from online physical places? That really depends. It just depends on where you have to go. So it's here and there, 50-50 for me. So that's just my answer.
Yeah.
I would have to say I will collect online for stuff like limited run or whatever, but I will always prefer to go physical. I travel a lot for work, and that's that excitement of the hunt, of finding these things and exploring. You find stuff you were never intending to find. That's even more exciting to me than looking for one thing and just running for it.
Yeah.
I want to be able to do that. So that's always physical for me, being somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll similarly, like, I'll go online to buy games like on eBay and stuff, but first and foremost I check like the local shops and like thrift stores before I like resort to that, because like there's friends that own shops in the area and stuff, so
Right.
hooking the homies up that way is nice, but also just shopping local, like it's nice, and also being able to have that like immediately gets that serotonin boost like right away.
Yeah.
Granted, mail day is also nice. Like you're like, hey, open my mailbox. I didn't realize this was coming today.
Oh, ADHD
For
is
me-
the greatest
yeah.
gift for that.
Yeah.
For me, it's a mixture of both. I am not from this city. I don't intend to stay in this city. And even though I live in one of the 10 largest cities in the U.S. right now, there's actually not that many retro shops around here. And the one that Legion Golden Jules and I went to, the owner's Dick. And you know, he's one of those older people who like
Very
they
clear.
know what they know what they have, and they expect everyone in there to not understand the items as well as we do.
that.
And
Oh,
it was
that person.
yeah, you remember that story? Yeah,
Yeah.
it was that one. Oh yeah, but for me, it's like if I happen to find something when I'm out and around, especially if I'm visiting friends. Like I got some stuff when I was back up in Virginia for one of my friends' weddings last year. That was amazing. I got a few nice deals there. I don't travel a lot for work, but I do travel to a number of conventions. I'm always browsing the retro tables there. Don't always find anything, but I see what it is. But sometimes I'm just like, I need to finally get this. I'll just go online. So it depends on what's available. And so it's a mix, but I love browsing in person.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm spoiled. I have 2 shops immediately like
it's
around me, and then I'm close to both like Seattle and Portland and all the cities around those. And there's so many like retro shops in,
Oh, yeah,
in
you're
the
set.
PNW. And like the Seattle group I'm in, somebody went through it like a while back and got all the shops in like the whole state and like Oregon and stuff, and like made a Google Map document that we can like go if we're going on a retro hunt.
Yeah.
He also added like the like specialty like antique stores and stuff that have sections, like large sections for individual sellers for games. So I'm spoiled.
Yeah. No, like one thing I'll say is shout outs to Video Games New York, because that's the place that I usually go to whenever I go to retro hunts. There's other places in New York City, like there's JNL, and then there's 8-Bit and Up, but I got a funny 8-Bit and Up story I want to bring up. There was one time my friends and I actually went there because like we were just gathering, and then we just decided, let's just stop by there and see what they had. And the person that, I don't know if that place is still around, and if so, I don't know if this person still runs it, but he was a fucking asshole. So the story is that, because like, so we were just casually talking about DLC, and then like he chimed in and he was like, oh, DLC is great with the way they handle it now. And at the time it was kind of problematic. It's more streamlined now, but at the time, this was like 2012. And then he tried to justify it by saying Street Fighter 2, Street Fighter 2 Champion Edition, Street Fighter 2 Hyper Fighting, and so on and so forth. All those updates that Capcom used to just make the same game with different updates in arcades and on consoles, because there wasn't DLC back then, so you had to buy the game again. And then he would try to bring up some of the most ridiculous points. And he would always thinks he would always win arguments by saying, "So suck my dick." That's how he. Those people. He immediately lost all credibility of his argument the moment he kept saying that. And I look back on it and laugh because of how ridiculous it is.
It sounds like you're arguing with a badly written cartoon character.
I mean, honestly, it does.
Yeah.
Wow.
The guy was like in his 30s or so, around that age range, like late 20s, early 30s, and he was acting like he was still in high school. So, yeah.
I mean, I'm 43 and I joke I'm a giant 12-year-old, but like not that way.
I've had those awkward experiences. Like the town I lived in before I moved over, like closer to Seattle, like they didn't have a gaming shop there, but like a half hour away, there was a gaming shop, and the guy and his employees would like watch you like a hawk as soon as you like walked in. I'm like, if you're not gonna trust your like customers, like maybe you shouldn't own a shop. Like
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The
like,
better ones, like
don't
if
make
they
them
wanna
feel
watch
like a
somebody-
thief.
have
You
good
can watch some-
conversations.
Yeah, you can watch like a customer without like making them feel like they're a thief.
Yes.
When they enter the door, interact with them, like you said, like
Yeah.
because I always tell people, I'm like, their prices kind of suck. They start to price high because like I have gotten deals out of that place because like Genesis games I didn't pay attention to, but like anything like Wii area forward, they like if it was even remotely popular, they start spiking the price above like the going rates. Like so, I was like, between their customer service and that, I didn't really go there very often.
Yeah, that's part of why I like going to the physical stores when I travel, because it's not just what games can I find, but the conversations I've had.
Yeah.
Like, my most recent trip, I had this great conversation about just how the power system worked for Atari 2600s versus 7800s, and like we got into this whole lengthy conversation, and that's what I remember. Not even so much that I only bought a few games, but
Oh yeah.
I want to go back there. Like, it was great.
Yeah.
Before we go on to the next question, I'm glad Shellshock mentioned video games in New York. I've not got to go to the physical store, but they do travel to conventions a lot. I mean, they're always at MagFest, and they're at many of the conventions I go to. So that's why I nodded so emphatically when he mentioned it, because I am very familiar with them. I don't always buy from them, but most of their prices are pretty damn fair. And regardless of that, their selection is phenomenal.
Yes.
Yeah.
They are very solid. And I highly recommend them, whether you're at the physical store, online, their website, or at their traveling booth at cons.
If anyone's visiting New York City, I'll take you.
I need to go back and come visit you sometime, dude, because the last time I got to go to New York was right before Ash moved.
Yeah, if you guys go to Seattle, definitely check out Pink.
I was going to say,
Gorilla
I'm going to poke you. I'm going to poke you when
I've
I go to
actually
Seattle.
have been to that.
There's-
My
Pink
twice
Gorilla is
in
great.
Seattle.
Their stores, they have 3 stores now. They're all based kind of like off Japanese stores, so they have the cool like shelves with all the hanging things. But then my buddy's store just outside of Seattle in Lake Stevens is Stupid Geeks Inc. And he's super fair with pricing, trade-ins, everything.
You know, actually, the best. I hate to say it, but the best retro physical stores I've ever been to were in Tokyo.
I bet.
Oh god,
yeah.
I had so much fun with that, and just a little wholesome one on that too. I'm intermediate in Japanese. Like, I know enough to carry a conversation, but not everything in it. But there was one girl who was going through there, and because we were both wearing Splatoon shirts, we totally complimented each other, like, between Japanese and English. And as they were about to leave, I kind of like did the squid sisters, "Shellshock," and she just, "Shellshock." so collecting in video games again.
Yep.
Yeah.
I got some nice finds there too.
Yep. All right. Someone asks, what's the funniest way you got a rare game? Like if you got it for cheap or something. Well,
I think we kind of covered that.
I've gone over mine already.
I did, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine was honestly that light with the SNES, the 30+ games, including Chrono Trigger and Earthbound.
Yeah.
Mine between the Neo Geo Pocket and then my Steel Battalion.
Oh
Yeah.
For a freaking Bluetooth headset.
That was amazing.
I think funniest for me, there's a pawn shop back home that like I've been going to since I was a kid because my mom like knew them from when she was in her early 20s, and I went in there and I would check out games all the time and they'd chat with me, but there was like some game, the game was kind of scratched, and I brought it up. I was like, hey dude, this is like super scratched, I just want you to know. And he's like, you want it? I was like, I mean, I was just bringing it to your attention so that like somebody had burned, but you know, so he's like, I think you'd appreciate it if it doesn't work, you know, whatever. And I think it was, oh crap, I can't remember what game. It did work, but it was cool. It was just like,
that's awesome.
thank you.
Yes. But again, for me, Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles GameCube, $10. Long Island Retro 2017.
I love it.
That's my story, and I'll stick to it.
It's a classic. I love it.
Asran127 asks, thoughts on the let's put a download code in the box approach some companies to sell games physically? Like, would you buy the case in the name of collecting? I would not do that. Like, if it's just a download code only with the case, what's the point?
There's only one point these games are ever going to have. This is where we're all going to get cases in decades to fix our Switch collection of actual games if a case is destroyed. That's the only purpose they're going to have.
Yeah. I'd actually typed up some of my answers for this one because I was like telling Shellshock I was so hyped for this podcast. For me, on the put a download code in a box. I absolutely hate it. I mean, if it's a game in series that I really love and this is literally the only way to get it, then I'd go for it. But I'm the person who will go out of their way to get an actual physical copy. Like, case in point, Bayonetta ports to the Switch. We weren't originally getting physical releases of those in the West. I got the Japanese physical release for them. Hilariously enough, that actually played into my collecting. I got the special edition pack, and then I got the Canadian steel case 2-pack. So for that, but it's just I will only get the case for a digital game as a last resort.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of it either. The only way I think it's like kind of okay is if it's like bonus downloads with the physical game, like Spider-Man Miles Morales had if you paid a little bit extra, you got the PS5 version of the PS4.
Yeah,
yeah, I think like that. Yeah, that's a little different on those, but
that's like I guess the gray area that I would be okay with it, but
the gray area for that would kind of only be the Mega Man X 1 and 2 Legacy Collection for the Switch, where the first one's on the cart and then the other 4 are download. But that is still. I know I hate it. I hate it too. But that one is like that's the line of like okay, because I also got that for like $30.
Right. Because
like I hate the giant collector's editions. It's like it might even come with a steelbook case in it, but then it's a digital code. I'm like
God of War recently.
Yeah. But
I think the giant collection for Diablo 4 doesn't come with the game at all.
Yeah, because like at least with Mega Man Zero ZX Legacy Collection, since there were 6 games and they're all in one cartridge, for Battle Network Legacy Collection 1 and 2, the way they did it was that although they separated the collections digitally, for physically, everything is on the disc, or in the Switch's case, the cartridge. But when you put it in, it pops up as Legacy Collection 1, Legacy Collection 2. But it's still a one Switch game. So at least
that's how they did the
that's better.
Final Fantasy Pixel remasters.
Yeah,
it pops up all the games.
They did the same thing for Final Fantasy X. Well, okay, no, sort of. Final Fantasy X 10-2, sort of, but you still have to download a code to download it. But it would still pop up in the menu, and you're still required to play it. So they half got it right and half got it wrong.
Well, you can get a version of that from PlayAsia that you put the cartridge in, they both pop up, and they are both there. Because I didn't have to download either of them.
That's
so
true.
They could do it. They just didn't do it for the U.S. market because it cheaped out on the cartridge.
Yes,
that's not on them.
But
we get kind of screwed over here lately with things like that.
We do, like. Although at least they gave us the great Ace Attorney Chronicles in cartridge form physically. So
yes, such a good game.
Yeah.
Yes.
So next up, from Dari one, like they asked the physical versus digital one. So we already talked about that, but they also asked, is it collecting if all your games are digital? I'm going to go out of my way and say yes, it is, because it's still a viable way to collect your games. It may not be the way you want to collect, but it's a way somebody can collect.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would still kind of go with no, only because like if you're talking about a collection, if you had like you can have a collection of digital games, I get that, but if you're comparing like, oh, I put the time and effort to build up this collection. Oh, okay, cool. I downloaded these, like just getting the ROMs or something.
Yeah.
Okay, you have a technical collection, if we're going to be those, technically, but you didn't really put the time and effort as much into it. Like, it's good that you have them, you can play them and enjoy them. There's nothing wrong with that. But like looking at someone that has my comic book collection, cool. I have the Marvel app, so I've collected all these. Well, you didn't. It's not the same as having an actual physical collection.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you want to get to that minutia, I would say no. But yeah.
Well, you guys have learned with me that I'm a very technical person, and I get that because that is absolutely a caveat. I would say that is a collection, but they didn't go collecting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not the same as hunting down in the wild.
Exactly, because it's like, again, Sims, like we all discussed earlier, it is viable and valid to have the digital games, and even if it's entirely digital, like you said, it is still a collection. But that's when you start getting into the technicalities of it. And I agree with those wholeheartedly. But I also agree with Shellshock too. With yes, it's a collection, but it's one of those things of like. I'm sorry. Just the first analogy that pops into my head is cosplay, because I'm also a big cosplayer. Is I don't care if you made, bought, or put together your outfit, because I actually build a lot of my own stuff. I'm a builder. I'm a crafter. I'm not as good at sewing though.
Yeah.
My thing is, if you're wearing a costume, Be proud of it, have fun with it.
Yeah.
But don't try to claim you made something in it that you didn't.
Yeah.
And that's like I'll just say my Empika. I cosplay Hyrule Warriors. I built my armor and my sword by myself. I commissioned the wig because I wanted that thing to be perfect.
Yeah.
Because I can't braid hair. She got those 2 little braids. But yeah, I mean, but the armor and everything. Oh yeah, I built that myself. So I will absolutely specify and say thank you. Here's what I did.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, like we've talked about it a little bit. The price of like retro games has gone insane.
It's gone
kind of stabled out, but like the games that shot up super high that were a little spendy have stayed super high now, whereas like the more common games have started to kind of come back down to reality. So like I personally do love physical and like original hardware, though I play my Super Nintendo games on the analog Super NT just because it looks so crisp.
Oh yeah.
But otherwise I have my RetroTink and I upscale.
Yeah. Well, and also with the collecting, I mean, well, the topic is collecting. I think that all 4 of us can. We've all touched on it on previous conversations before. While we have our preferred methods of playing it, I care more about someone being able to play a game than exactly how to play it.
So, I'm not dividing out playing.
I know you're
I'm
not.
just dividing the actual act of collecting.
Exactly.
Right.
10 billion. I agree. 10 billion.
Perfectly fine.
Definitely ways as far as playing that you just have to find a way sometimes.
Me playing Super Mario Brothers my first time as a kid on an actual NES is no different than a kid that gets an NES Classic and they're playing Super Mario Brothers for the first time. There is no difference.
That is a
agreed.
They are just as important to each other.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's good for preservation.
Yes, it is.
Sure. That's why I said digital is the future of preservation for a lot of that, but I divide
really
that from collecting
Which I mentioned Pink Gorilla, one of the owners, she cut back her time at the actual stores because she got a job with the video game history.
Oh, I know her. Kelsey.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, Kelsey Lewin.
Oh, cool.
Yep.
And so they've been going to court and like really fighting to preserve gaming and like get it protected. I know there was a bit of a slip up, but they've been like really pushing.
Awesome.
Well, I hope for the best for them. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah.
So
if companies aren't going to do it, we got to fight for it.
Exactly, and there's every company. Anyway.
Yeah.
So Professor Icepick asks, "Are there any rare games you had the chance to buy at a decent price that you regret missing out on?" Yes. I got the biggest answer. Mega Man Network Transmission for GameCube for $3. I should have bought that. This was around the time where GameStop was starting to get ready to get rid of GameCube games. I regret not doing that. I should have done that. That game goes for a whole lot of money now.
Oh, man,
that's my answer.
Too many of those. There's too many of those.
I had that one, and I think I eventually sold it.
Like GameStop clearancing out various generations and stuff, missing out on them, or like hesitating on hitting somebody up on like Facebook Market. There was a really, really ridiculous deal on a 64 with like the Ogre Battle or whatever 64, and like a ton of games that are like ridiculous. They wanted $100, and I hesitated a little bit and I missed out on it. And I'm like,
I have one too, which is actually a combination, both peripheral add-on as well as games. Many people who've heard me on the channel before know that the one item I really want in my collection someday, which I realize might never happen, I really want a 64 DD. I did get a chance to actually see and touch one in person last year, which was incredible.
Hey, me too.
There was an eBay listing for one in a few games over a decade ago. I was in college and I couldn't afford it at the time. It was $600 for the 64 and the DD and a few games, and I wanted it, but with where I was in between things, I couldn't afford to just drop $600 like that.
Yeah.
And I've regretted it ever since. I wish I'd been like, "Hey, Dad, can I go ahead and get this for early birthday or something?"
Yeah.
So, for me, this is both generic and sad for a lot of people, but given my age, we had these stores called Circuit City, if people remember that existed.
Yeah. We all do.
They had the big giant plug for the front door and all that fun stuff. I remember being in there, walking around, and they had that big metal bin just slam full of boxed Earthbounds for $10. They were just trying to get rid of them, and I'm like, that game looks stupid. I don't want to get that. And I just left it there and walked away. And I knew exactly what it was. And I remember, I look back at that and be like, you idiot.
Oh no!
You could have had it.
I think all four of us absolutely have that, man. Oh god.
Like they were just big pile of
My
them.
heart.
We wanted it. Like $10. I could have just spent $10 and just had it. And we're talking the big box that had everything included. And I just
My heart.
mistakes were made.
My heart.
Things going out.
I think Nudge realized that we all needed comfort after all four of our stories.
Zen, my heart.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because the only reason is because Earthbound is one of my all-time favorite games.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah.
And I assumed I wouldn't like it because I, as a younger kid guy, whatever, teenager at the time, I'm like, that looks like a little kid's game. Like, because I just looked at the art on the box. I'm like, I don't want to play that.
Yeah. Dot Hack Quarantine is one of the big ones for me. Like, I had a copy. It got stolen. I didn't replace it when, like, it was still cheap and easily available. And then when I first got back into collecting, there was a copy for, like, $100, I think, at a store near my hometown. It was complete. I didn't buy it. Now it's like $400. I'm like,
oof.
Yeah,
it hurts.
I
also traded
sorry.
Wild Arms Ultra Code F. I traded that for Suikoden 3, and now that one is way more expensive than Suikoden 3.
No.
Wow.
I still love Suikoden, but it hurts my heart a little bit.
The power of hindsight.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Where's the DeLorean when you need it?
Yeah, seriously. Someone please go and find Christopher Lloyd and hit him up so we can go back in time.
I mean, true.
Marty!
I'll just get my ocarina and play the Song of Time for us.
Okay.
Master Sword down.
Yeah. Mr. Ben asks, what's the rarest and or most expensive game you own? And are there any games that you're looking for right now that have, despite your best efforts, currently eluded you? I'll have to think about the second one, but or rather, I think I could probably think of the second one now, because the first one's going to be hard to think of, because I don't know what the rarest game I own is.
Yeah.
There's like so many games.
I have an answer.
For the rarest and most expensive, I've got several like limited prints of things, regardless of limited run, and I can't think of all of it. Just for first instinct, off the top of my head, that go to my mind are Ikaruga and Super Mario RPG. Because I've got both of those. And again, I've got many more games. Oh, here's one. Actually, probably the rarest that I own, because those are probably the most expensive. The rarest I own, Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers 2.
Ooh.
Nice.
And I actually got that because we were talking about good deals. We never saw it in a store anywhere when I was a kid, and I didn't even realize it existed for a long time. And thankfully, because my dad got big into eBay even before I got my own account on there, we found it like new for $70.
Wow.
So I actually saw an inbox copy at my home convention Animazement a few years ago for like, they were asking 190 inbox, and a part of me was super because for the outside of any anime, Rescue Rangers is my favorite TV show of all time.
Yes.
I was super tempted, but I'm like, I love it, but I have the game. Yeah. So that was one where I probably could have gone on for. I know I could have got it, but I actually don't regret not buying that one.
Yeah.
Because I have my copy to play. So
that's where I've got my favorite game that I own on every platform that is released digitally and physically. Chrono Trigger.
Yeah, that's me. That's me with Ocarina of Time.
Like I added all the other versions, and I made a point to grab.
Here, just for you, friend.
Ah, yes.
Nice.
I made a point to grab it when I found it at Portland Expo.
Nice.
That same year, I got a loose copy of Suikoden 2, so I got a custom case. I also have one in the similar custom case, even though I have the jeweled case and everything. Just because it looks nice to have all of them in the PS2 area.
Actually, it wasn't 190, it was 300. Sorry, I was remembering another game.
And then this one isn't a rare game itself, but my copy is a little bit more unique. Orange Box. I met a bunch of the voice actors at PAX last year and got like a bunch of the Team Fortress voices signed on it. And then GLaDOS.
Yeah, Ellen McLean. She is super sweet. I need to see her again.
She put "You Monster," Ellen McLean.
Especially if you have Portal art, she has a specific way of how she signs it. Because I met her at Dragon Con one year, and then she remembered me at MagFest. She was just at this past MagFest. I unfortunately didn't get to see her, But I'll tell you this, if you see her again, she will remember you. She is one of those guests who does.
Awesome.
Yes.
Yeah, I also got the signature of 2B from Nier on my copy of Nier. I was like,
Nice.
All right.
yeah, it was fun.
Zen?
For a couple of mine, like, of course, we talked about Devil's Third earlier, which actually still goes for a good bit. My Mega Man X3 is up there. Even loose with just the cartridge is still like a couple $100.
Yeah.
Haunting Ground on PS2. I think the most expensive one, I'm looking at like the prices of some of my collection I've listed. I've got stuff like a boxed Japanese Pokemon box, Ruby and Sapphire, which goes for a lot. Like a ridiculous
Pokemon's
amount.
insane.
You know what? That's my answer. That's my answer.
There you go.
Because I have that.
There you go.
Yeah.
Stuff like that, and then one of the more recent ones, the Fire Emblem Fates Special Edition, which now, especially after the eShop is shut down, is the only way because that's a cart that has all 3 games on one cartridge without restriction. I don't have to pick one and do DLC.
Yeah.
Those have skyrocketed since the closure of the eShop.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that. Like
I got
3DS and 3DS
Whole
games are
collector's
probably...
edition. Yeah.
I got so lucky with that. Again, just being a big Fire Emblem fan, I'd pre-ordered that one when I had the chance, and especially with all this, I was like, "Damn,
I actually,
way to go past me."
I actually do have Fire Emblem Fates collector's edition that has everything in one cartridge. I do have that. I got it at launch at Nintendo New York. I also got Pokemon Box when it came out back when Nintendo New York used to be the Pokemon Center. So I got that.
Jealous.
I also got some autographed copies of games. Super Mario 3D World for the Wii U, autographed by Charles Martinet. Super Mario Galaxy 2, autographed by Charles Martinet. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe for the Switch, autographed by Charles Martinet. Someday I'll get Odyssey autographed, and also Mario 64.
Nice.
I got Mega Man 11 autographed by the current producer of the Mega Man series.
Oh, nice.
I got a couple of Street Fighter games from like Street Fighter 4 and onwards, autographed by former producer Yoshinori Ono, who no longer works at Capcom. And I also got Tekken 6 autographed by Katsuhiro Harada, who is the current Tekken producer. And also Mad World for the Wii, autographed by I think he's the director or the producer, Atsushi Inaba, who works for Platinum Games.
Nice.
It was such a fun game.
Yeah, he worked for a lot of games from back when he worked for Capcom and also for Platinum. And yeah, so I'm proud to have those.
That's awesome.
So so we got a few more questions. So to the one about the despite, are there any games that you're looking for right now that despite your best efforts currently eluded you? I can name one of the most expensive games in the market, and it's a platform I used to own, but I would like to have again, the Sega Saturn. And that game is Panzer Dragoon Saga. That game is easily one of the most expensive games in the market. It came out in early 1998, and it actually had a very small print run because Sega was easily killing off the Sega Saturn. So,
they went way too fast.
They did, yeah.
No, for sure,
That's a big conversation to have too.
The Sega Saturn was a huge shit show in itself.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm late to that one.
I love the Sega
We got
Saturn.
a lot of support
but-
in Japan.
Yeah, I love the Sega Saturn, but it's not the console or the games. It's what went on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
That was the problem.
Absolutely.
So Panzer Dragoon Saga is my answer.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
For me, the golden goose I'm still chasing and trying to get a hold of is Cubivore on the Nintendo
yeah.
GameCube.
Oh,
Yeah,
so much fun.
I love that game. Like, it does not look like it should be fun, but it is so addictive. I play it. I have a modded GameCube that I play a lot of these on, and I just eventually had to get it on there. I've only seen it physically once. A girl I knew had it. It was just the case, didn't even have the rest of the box with the disc, and she wouldn't let that thing go for even $500.
Oh.
And I was just like, ah. So I want to find it, but I know I'm going to have to pay out the nose if I ever want to actually get it. So I'm trying to get myself to quit wanting to find it, but I really want that, just a boxed version of it. It's so much fun.
For sure.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess financially, yeah, because I can go like to eBay or something and pick up whatever, but getting something at a reasonable price compared to like the going rates, like Hack Quarantine. I'm just hoping it's been slowly ticking down again. It's back down to like 350 or so. So I'm like, keep going, keep coming. But other than that, I've been kind of looking for the Full Metal Alchemist 2 on PS2. I have the first one, and it's not very expensive, but I'm like, I'll just wait. I don't need it right now. So I've just been like peeking around stores and haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, there's not really any that have eluded me. Again, outside of same as you guys, the ones which are price-wise. But that would be my big illusion. But for, like I said earlier in the podcast, I'm mostly satisfied with where I am at right now.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if eventually a version or something pops up, but I've been very fortunate, and I'm extremely grateful for that.
Yeah. I'm similar spot. Like, I'm happy and content with my collection. Like, I still go and look at the stores, even though I'm like, the only things I'm like wanting are just expensive. So I'm like waiting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my collection is done quite well over the decades. I just want that damn Cubivore.
Oh yeah.
Understandable.
Yep.
It's fun to like track your, because I use GameEye, an app that you can like keep your collection on, because it has an app, and I can like, I'm at the store. Do I actually own that game yet?
Yeah, I use CLZ is what I use.
Yeah, it's nice like looking on it and being like, huh, I have some value.
Yeah. Let's see. So a few more questions. Destiny asks, what was a game that you sold off but regretted to the point you had to get it again? For me, Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past for Super Nintendo. I recently got it a couple months ago.
Nice.
There you go.
That's my answer.
For me, when I was a young teen, like 8th grade, I think, I sold Pokemon Yellow and Final Fantasy VII, and then I was like, and I went and got a new copy of Final Fantasy VII. I've never replaced Yellow.
Ooh.
But it's a fun game, but I'm very casual with Pokemon.
Yeah.
Yeah, same. For me, thankfully, the answer is actually no, because while I have sold a few games, I've never really regretted any that I have sold. There's a couple I've occasionally gone like, maybe I shouldn't have, but I've never like actually regretted it and then had to go back and replace it.
Yeah. Now I only sell games I absolutely hate. I'm like, nope, this game's take it.
I'm very rare for that. I mean, the best, aside from like again, if you like I mentioned like Advance War Days of Ruin, the biggest one that really comes to mind though was actually Monsters Inc. Laugh Factory, because it was the one for GameCube. I'm a huge Pixar fan. And this was my senior year of high school, after Monsters Inc. had been the new movie. And I wanted to, like, anything I could do with Monsters Inc. because merch was still hard to come by. And I'm like, this is on GameCube? Absolutely. It was actually a pretty fun game. It was a 1v1v1 dodgeball simulator, basically.
Oh.
I 100%ed the game in an hour.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
And I just like, that's it?
That's like me with Spy vs. Spy.
Yeah, I tried to play it more. I tried to, but I'm like, I can't. So I did sell it. I mean, there's the Pixar fan in me. There's a small problem, but at the same time, I'm like, nah.
I remember when I was a kid, there was like a game on PS2. It was like Viking Rune or something like that. And like, I got it and I played it for like about an hour, and I was like, I hate this game. And I just took it back and sold it so I could get something else.
Let's put it this way. Again, same as you guys, I was a collector before I knew it, because, again, my dad's console that I got introduced to everything on was an Atari 2600. We still have a copy of E.T. at home.
Nice.
Yeah. And I would play that game and be like, why am I not having fun? Because I didn't understand. Like, 3-year-old Mantle didn't understand that a game could be bad.
Yeah.
And I just switched back to another game.
So, the ones I've had to get rid of, we talked about earlier, my little great purge of a lot of my stuff, including my NES collection, which I've gotten most of it back. But what I ended up getting rid of is I had all 3 of the Castlevania games, all 3 of the Ninja Gaiden games. Like, all of them were in perfect condition with everything, and they were gone. And I haven't been able to find good copies like I had before. to replace those. Like we've had collections come out since then, which has been nice, but like those original cartridges, I can't replace those as easily.
Yeah.
And I greatly regret any of those I actually sold. I've been trying to get them back ever since. So don't sell it if you don't have to, kids.
Absolutely.
Yep.
That's why I don't, even though I know how much my collection is roughly worth. I'm like, I'm not going to unless I need to.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
That's also why I haven't sold my Magic cards. I
Yeah.
don't really need to. I know how much value roughly, and I've thought about converting it into retro games. But then I'm like, I know that I want to get back into the game as soon as I get rid of them.
Yeah, it's how much are they worth to you versus how much are they worth real dollars. Like,
Yeah.
that's never the same thing.
Nah, it's not.
Absolutely.
All right, so next question. This one's system malfunction. What is your favorite console to collect for? Switch is current in terms of modern Switch, but in terms of retro, I'm gonna have to go with Super Nintendo.
Absolutely. I'm my answer is actually the exact same. I've got two, the Switch, the Super Nintendo. I love the Switch because of the sheer number of exclusive it has, as well as the great third-party releases, and as we've all touched on here, the collections they have. I mean, there are so many of these games that whether I still have, most of them I've already got, because that's, again, I'm a collector, that's who I am. But being able to have them in this way is just, well, yes, please, I will happily do that. Thank you. But for the Super Nintendo, I love the games that we all grew up with.
Mm-hmm.
And I also really enjoy looking for Super Famicom versions of them. But the other one for me, I love some of these translated cartridges and fan games.
Yeah.
I have a bunch of these. I have several on the NES as well. Like, I actually have a fan game of Nyan Cat for the NES.
Oh wow!
It is amazing. I will show you guys. It's so simple. It's so dumb. Well, you have to like. The controller actually didn't even work the first time I played it, but it's Nyan Cat, and you can make him go up and down across the sky as he keeps going. It's just
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I had to have it.
Nyan Cat. Okay, I was
Nyan Cat. Nyan Cat. But Nyan Cat. And I also have I have Wreck-It Ralph. Well, Fix It Felix Jr. I should say rather for Genesis.
That's awesome.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
And I'm a huge Wreck-It Ralph fan. I actually cosplay. I'm gonna wreck it.
Did you ever get the little mini arcade they made with the game?
I don't have the mini arcade though. I've seen it, but no. This is the fan game on a Genesis cartridge, and you can play just like that. But yeah, I've got very Super Nintendo, Super Famicom ones translated, fan made, like Super Mario World, Return to Dinosaur Land, like a good hack like that. Because again, I love these fan hacks you can play online. I have a bunch of Ocarina of Time fan hacks, of completely different ones on N64 cartridges. But while I could say for N64 and NES, the Super Nintendo, just there's so much variety with each of these. Like I've got Tales of Fantasia translated on an SNES cartridge. I have Sailor Moon Another Story, both the original Super Famicom one as well as a translated cartridge. So I love just the sheer variety of the Japanese as well as the English games, and then just other fan hacks later that I can play on OG hardware.
Yeah.
There you go. For me, I think the one I had the most fun collecting for that I've now actually finished, like I said, was my Wii U collection. Hunting for those. I mean, I was going to multiple states looking for these things. Getting all of it together was just a lot of fun. And once I completed that, the one I currently like collecting for, just because of the pure insanity of the library, is the original Game Boy. Because there was no rules as to what they could make. I'll pick up a great platformer, an RPG, a racing game, and then I find another one that's like, here's how you do like business math. Here's like Japanese scheduling. And I'm like, the Game Boy had no rules. It was just, what can we put on this thing?
Yep.
And like,
Well,
I have
that's how I first got
accounting.
Picross,
I have basically Japanese accounting software on a Game Boy cartridge. I found that, I was like, yeah, okay, I'll get this. Why not?
No, honestly, I think I finally learned of something that surpasses the Game Boy sewing. Sorry, machine.
Yeah, Nintendo in general, like over the years, they've done lots of weird, like things like that. The sewing machine, then like the accounting. Then there was like I think the Louvre. There's like a companion thing for the Louvre on the DS. Like there's a lot of weird stuff. There was like some military testing thing on the Super Nintendo too.
They had something, I think, at one of their baseball fields. You could order food and snacks with it. Like, there was all kinds of crazy things they've done with those. I think it was the Marlins, I believe.
They even had a trading.
They had the.
God.
They had that Nintendo Channel thing, didn't they? On like the Famicom.
that kind
I
of
think.
had something like that.
It was like
but
a
I don't-
digital
Yeah,
thing
well,
with the
and
computer.
television.
Like,
Yeah, like they also had like a training program for those who are employees at McDonald's as well.
Yep.
oh yeah, I
Like,
remember
there's
seeing about that.
But like the Game Boy was such a Wild West age
Oh, absolutely.
of when developers were like, "Oh, this is portable. Like, what can we do with this?"
Yeah.
All the
And-
ports and stuff that got put on there that barely functioned but were great.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Games that were barely games.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
For me, it's probably the PlayStation, like various generations, just because that's a lot of like my point where I started being able to do it myself, like through birthday money and stuff. Regardless, like when I was a kid, and then growing up, I did skip PS3, so that section is pretty small because I've posthumously picked it up. I was on
Nice.
360, but other than that, I like it's a close tie between PS1, PS2, and Super Nintendo for my collection. Lately, it's been Genesis though, Sega Genesis. That's been one of my favorites because I had that as a kid. So I'm going and hunting down memories, and I'm also doing the like shopping like you did when you were a kid. Like this looks crazy on the cartridge. I'm gonna play it,
yep.
and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. System also asked, "What is the most you'll spend on an old console or game, like in terms of older consoles?"
That's a painful question.
I
It's a good question, but it's painful.
I'll spend a good couple hundred. Like I'm willing to pay probably more than a PS5 for certain things. Like I've seriously looked at like an Atari Jaguar with its parts for like $1,000 and sat there and considered it. I looked at a Nintendo 64 disc drive, like you said, Mantle, about that was going for almost $1,000, and I was seriously considering it. I'm like, it would hurt, but I have the money. I could do it. Like, should I?
Yeah, my
And
answer
that's
is
that
very
rare
similar.
maturity that came in going, maybe
For
not.
me, it would be about that $500 to $700 range, absolute maximum. And I would love to be able to drop more, but regardless of the fact that I live in an expensive city right now,
Yeah.
and that I have other expenses I'm holding on to. Like, for example, I'm going to the UK in less than in about a month for one of my closest friends' weddings. I'm traveling for conventions. I will hopefully be moving within the next year or few. I'm hoping to go back to Japan in 2025.
Nice.
I want to, but there's so many of these things where it's like I see it, it's like I want it, but I can't. So
Yeah.
it comes back to what we've all said about where you want it, but you're also satisfied with where you are. So
I think right now it depends on the title. I would probably do in the 100 to 200 range
for a game, yeah.
Yeah, for a game. But there's definitely games that are more that I want, and if I'm ever in a position where I could easily drop that money without missing it, I would probably go for it.
Yes.
But that's also why I like doing the thrifting and stuff, because you sometimes get those insane deals. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like my answer is it varies, depends on the console and also like the games for the console, but there's no set answer for me. So
Yeah.
what retro game do you wish they never remade, or one that didn't need a remake? That's really hard to say, although I'm going to say this right now. I know the new Resident Evil 4 looks fantastic, but the original Resident Evil 4 was really good, so did it really need a remake?
I kind of
it's
think
like-
it does. Like,
Uh-huh.
my answer on this is I don't think there's any game that really does not need a remake, because as long as you're not losing access to the old one, you can go back and play that. But that
Yeah.
new one, that's the Resident Evil that a new generation may run into with those enhancements, and that's the way they play it. Now, like, I understand if it's a bad remake, because those happen, but any game that's been remade is a new opportunity for somebody else on more accessible hardware or other means to play it. So I really have no issue with any remakes.
Okay, yeah. Fair.
Yeah, honestly,
That's my view.
I'm very similar. I mean, there's sometimes I'll look at a remake and go, "Was this necessary?" But I agree.
Last of Us.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, never mind. I'm going to agree with that.
Okay,
because
Last of
I've-
Us.
I've
Last of
only
Us.
played the first- Yeah, I'll agree completely. Even though I had Last of Us on PS3 and then sold it because I got the PS4 copy later
bought
because
it 3
waited so
times.
long. I enjoyed it. I'm a huge Uncharted fan, so I was like, oh hell yeah, I'm gonna play this. I enjoyed it,
hmm
but having played it, I really don't think it needed a remake.
And
Yeah.
from what I've seen, it doesn't look that much different from the PS4 remaster.
Yeah, the fact that it was released on PS3, remastered on PS4, and then remade for 5. I'm like, you guys are approaching like Skyrim here.
Yeah, it was bad enough. It was bad enough that they remade it on PS4, but PS5 is just like, are you fucking kidding me?
If they didn't do it on PS4, I feel like it would have been more justified.
I would agree with that.
2 gens.
Yeah, that's part of my thing. Is like I know a lot of people. Well, not necessarily for remasters, but a lot of people very mistakenly say the Switch is the lane of the ports. No, I'm sorry, that title belongs to the PS4 because the Switch at least gets ports of games that deserve to be ported, the Switch or
Nintendo ever had.
Yeah.
Yes, and Nintendo has them. And again, are there a few games that they probably could port? Yes, but they've not ported every single thing, and I'm glad for it. But what they port, every single one that has been ported, has deserved to have been ported.
Yeah.
PS4 is like, why are you porting this? Why is Husk? What is this? Why? And it's just there's so many of these games. I looked at a PS3, is like, and then they're porting it. And I'm just
like, I've seen so many games ported onto the Nintendo Switch, and every single one of them I'm fine with because, like I said, new group that probably may not have had a chance to play it.
Yes,
it makes them, for a lot of them, it's like portable, and now it's a new way to play that. Like, that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
It's sometimes a more reliable means of media to get it on a cartridge. You know, there's different reasons for it. It all comes down to the accessibility. Like,
yes,
The Last of Us. Yes, I got it 3 times. I bought it on PS3. Then when I got my PS4, they redid it. And I was like, all right, fine, I'll get that. And it was nice. The PS5, I think they did it as both. The show was coming out eventually. They wanted to show off the PS5. That's kind of one of those early generation ports, almost like, you know, we got the remakes of Mario 1, 2, 3 and Lost Levels on the Super Nintendo that showed off the Super Nintendo, but some people are like, well, we still have our NES. Like, that's this generation trying loosely similar idea. But, yeah, it gets weird.
Yeah, as far as remakes go, some I feel are less necessary than others, but none that I feel shouldn't have been remade.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, if you experience it, same with like movies. If it's or TV shows, even if it's rebooted and stuff and it's not good, it doesn't necessarily hurt the original. The original's still there to be able to be enjoyed. Like I know, like Final Fantasy VII, there's a vocal like number of people that don't like the remake because it's like differences and being like split up. But for me, like I almost cried when I fired that game up the first time because it was like my first game that I like bought myself, and it was like my PS1 and Final Fantasy VII. So firing that up and getting like back into that memory with that intro, I was just like, I'm still like getting chills just like thinking about that memory.
Yeah.
Honestly,
So it's a new way to experience something I love.
Yeah.
Right. That's perfectly fair.
Same with like the fan mods and stuff. It's a new way to experience something you love.
Yeah.
That was me with Zelda Ocarina of Time to 3D, and if they ever remake it, fantastic. If not, I've got both of those.
Yep.
Yeah.
Let's see. So, Private Maverick asks, which game would you say is your proudest find? That's a good question right there. I'm gonna have to really think about that one.
While you're thinking, I prepared for that one. There's several I could say. I would say mine is my Famicom disc of the original Legend of Zelda, and I realized that especially
I'm still looking for that.
Well, see, there we go. That's right there. Yeah, because it's got the disc and the entire little guidebook in it. Which, for those who have never seen a Famicom disc or the little guidebook, it's a chunky boy. I mean, this is the guide.
Completely unrelated. Where do you live?
I live in Florida right now. I'm from North Carolina, but no, because it's
you have to fight gators to get it.
I live in Florida. Gators are nothing.
Oh,
it's pristine, but
gorgeous.
I was super happy with this. I mean, the case it comes in is a little gray, but as you can see, but look at how pristine, like the little guidebook lit is. So,
this is game porn.
Oh yeah, this is oh yeah,
more or less.
No, this little guidebook here is 53 pages.
That's a true manual back in the day.
Yep. Oh, it is, but it and it's
Oh, that looks like a small book.
It is a small book, and it's like, remember, I'm intermediate in Japanese, so I can also read most of this.
Oh, I love the artwork too.
Oh, the artwork is so good.
You're gonna make me go spend some money tonight.
Well, hilariously enough, around the cast, I finally bought the Famicom cartridge of it. Because for those who don't know, the disc version came out before the cart did in Japan, because Japan they did have the Famicom disc. And for those who have seen the Super Mario movie, I was super happy with the Discun Cafe.
Discun,
Discun, like a hardware store. But it's just, that one would be my proudest find. I do have some Japanese versions of some of the other Zelda games. Like I got the Japanese collector's edition of Hyrule Warriors and Hyrule Warriors Legends. For me, really, pretty much any and all of my Zelda games, but especially the original Famicom of the first Zelda. So.
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah, still got to think about mine.
Yeah. So I always make sure these two are like nice and displayed next to each other.
Yep. All right.
Yeah, I'm jealous.
I don't know. Proudest find? I think getting that GameCube disc for $2 is still like my proudest find. I'm just like,
insane.
I feel like I committed like highway robbery.
Probably some of the games that I've mentioned earlier, like Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles for $10 is one of them. Final Fantasy 7 PS1 for $10, like stuff like that. I would say that's my proudest find.
For me, I think it's going to end up being Steel Battalion, just because it's the complete setup, that giant controller, the box, everything is included.
One of my closest friends has that, so I know exactly which.
Yeah, I put it up on Twitter, just the startup animation where you can hear it and you see the lights going across as the startup for when you have to fire it up, and I'm like, this is gorgeous.
Yeah.
Great. And it's so much fun to play, and it's so difficult.
Yeah, one of my that friend, he's a huge Gundam fan, so that's part of why he was like really big into it. You know, and again, well, just because I'm thinking about to help Shellshock even more, like this one. Well, this is absolutely my proudest one. While Zelda's my favorite game series, my favorite anime of all time, and my pet anime, the one that got me into it, is Sailor Moon.
Okay.
I actually have all 9 Sailor Moon Super Famicom games.
Nice.
So I'll be sure to share those on cast sometime. But yeah, those are fun. I do actually have the 3DO game, even though I don't have a 3DO.
Oh, wow.
I don't know where it's packed up right now, but I have it.
Yeah.
So,
That's fair.
But yeah, so again, that's just that was early on in my first anime cons, and getting each of those and then being able to play them is just collecting's fun.
Yep.
Agreed.
The last 2 questions are from Derek DeBroni. What unlicensed games have you owned since? I don't really have any unlicensed games.
Any of the fan cartridges and fan hacks I've got a number of those. I don't want to list the whole time talking about them, but I do have several. I'm very happy I have them. If anyone ever wants to play them, I will never say like, oh yeah, don't download. I have to download the ROM of it. I've got those just because, again, I like having that physical hardware.
Right.
Yeah.
Trying to find you're going to answer that, because I'm trying to find the name of the ones. I have a couple of the NES ones, because they were really bad about unlicensed gaming, like not specifically Tengen for some of those, but there's a few of the multi-carts, and I'm like, if I could remember the name of it.
Oh yeah, I have one of those multi-carts for the NES.
Oh yeah,
like the gold ones, like Fantastic Adventures of Dizzy.
Oh right,
stuff like that. Like they're interesting games, but they were never officially licensed because they're not normal NES cartridges.
I have a couple of the like multi-carts that came out at the end of the Sega Genesis like lifespan that like aren't recognized as official releases. They had like Streets of Rage 3 I think on it, and like a few other games. I bought it for Streets of Rage when I was a kid. And then I have a few fan translated cartridges of like I have Final Fantasy 5 and Bahamut's Lagoon on one cartridge, and then I have Gone Peru Gunman's Paradise, which is one of the best Zelda clones out there. It's super fun.
You had me at Bahamut Lagoon. I've been wanting to play that game. I hope
I haven't played it yet, but I have it.
Well, now that we got
Terra Enigma.
Well, now that we got Live Alive remake, I hope that Bahamut Lagoon's next.
Hopefully.
Well, I mean, Square has been on record saying that they want to get digital versions at least of their whole collection, and getting Live Alive over in the States, that kind of shows.
Yep.
We're kind of
Physical.
And
I was so excited.
Tactics Ogre, like
Yep.
Oh, Tactics Ogre, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
there's-
But
we're getting a lot of support that I didn't expect.
same. Well, I'm also glad you mentioned that for the start because I completely forgot it. For some of the again, MagFest is my biggest gaming event that I go to, but I went to Classic Games Fest a few years when I lived in Texas. That was a great show. If anyone's ever, it's in summer in Austin. I highly recommend it. I will go back to it someday. Just I have to be judicious with which conventions I travel to right now.
Mhm.
I got one of those like unofficial carts which had like 90 games on it for like $5 for the NES. I was like, why not? But also we're talking with fan games and stuff in NES and Final Fantasy VII. I have Final Fantasy VII on the NES.
Oh, I want
Ooh.
that
I
so bad.
saw that.
Play that remake.
Hilarious.
I've not played it yet, but I'm like, I have to buy this.
I've seen it partially played, and I'm just like, this is ridiculous, but I'm sure somebody's gonna love it.
Oh, absolutely. It's
Yeah,
just,
I really I want to find a way to get like the demake of Bloodborne, the PS1
Oh.
demake.
Oh.
On PlayStation.
I want the Halo for Atari 2600.
Mhm.
That looks great.
I think fan-made demakes are hilarious.
Yeah.
They're fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, there's a mod for the Pixel remaster of Final Fantasy 1 where they changed all the character, like the class models, to match with the Final Fantasy 9 characters of the corresponding. So like
I
the Dawn
love-
is the thief, Vivi's the black mage, Steiner's the like knight. It's pretty
That's
cool.
amazing. That's so cool.
Yeah.
All right.
So now the last thing is, do you own a disc that has multiple demo games? Like Mario Kart Double Dash comes with a demo disc that has like Mario. I think it has Mario Party 5 on there. It has the first 2003 Ninja Turtles game. It has Sonic Heroes and a couple other stuff, like other demos that were on there, and also trailers for upcoming games. So Mario Kart Double Dash for me, and I also own like a couple of PlayStation Underground discs for PS1.
So for those, I actually have an entire collection of like PlayStation Underground, some of the PC Mag discs with a lot of those games on it. I've got ones from Official Xbox Magazine, Dreamcast Magazine, hundreds of these things because I got these magazines for years. I've been working on digitizing a lot of the stuff that's inside of there, like the behind the scenes videos and things like that to share on my YouTube
awesome.
channel with some of the extra stuff. And of course, for a lot of the games, the demo disc for like Metal Gear Solid 2 that came with I'm blanking on the name. Started with an X. The mech fighting game on PS. I don't think it was Xenogears.
I did say you said
Yeah,
from my
I don't know why I said X.
Is that like Mech Assault?
No, that was on Xbox.
Okay,
Anyways.
there's so many of those games that I'm like, it's like there.
Oh, yeah, it says X, and it makes me think Gundam Battle Assault 2. I got banned from playing half the suits in that game.
Zone of the Enders. That's what it was. Zone of the Enders.
Ah,
Because I've got that. I've got Square released a series of demo discs with like what games are there? Because they had the demo for Final Fantasy VIII, I think. That came with one of the games. They've got the VHS tape that came later for Final Fantasy VII. So many of those that I love, and a couple of them actually have games that were playable that the game was then either canceled or completely redone, so you can play this version of the game that no longer is like the final version on those, and I love that stuff. So,
yeah. I'm pretty sure I have the Mario Kart Double Dash one. Because I was always so focused on the game. I can't remember if I do or not, honestly, because again, I was always just so focused on Mario Kart Double Dash.
Yeah.
Because I actually didn't own a PlayStation console until Kingdom Hearts 2 came out. I played 1 first, but I waited until 2 came out. And for those who don't remember, Kingdom Hearts 2 came out the year that the PS3 came out, just in the spring before it. So I never really got any of those demo discs now, but I think later in some of my collecting, I might have some somewhere. I was always just so fixated on this is my game.
Nope.
but the cooler thing I would have relevant to that though is since again from the previous sharing with Shellshock discussion on Nintendo Power last year, I did get a few of those videos, the VHSs that Nintendo would send to tell you about the Rumble Pack and Star Fox 64 and various other games and stuff. Those were great.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to find a bunch of those to digitize and preserve too.
Mm-hmm.
I have
So hard
them
to
at my
find.
parents' house somewhere, And whenever I can track them down, I will get in touch with you to get those digitized, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I no promises on. Well, I try to avoid going home. I mean, I love my dad, but
I get that.
Yeah.
my mom's a
I get that.
My mom's a narcissist, but I want to. There are some of those things that it's just a matter of finding because I can't even find some of my other things from home, which is completely unrelated. But since we were talking Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, my dad's mother sadly passed away now, of course, old age. She used to make all these handmade dolls for me and my little sister, like Raggedy Ann and Andy style.
Mm-hmm.
And she made me some custom ones when I was a kid. My favorite one, and I don't know where these dolls are, and I really want to find it. She made me a Leonardo.
Ooh.
That's awesome.
He's
Nice.
the cutest, like little Raggedy Andy style Leonardo, and even though he has the katanas, she sewed like little pouches on his front, and she bought me like the silver size for Raphael to stuff on him. And it's just
Yes.
so I have a
That's adorable.
handmade little Leonardo.
Yep.
The one that I bought for the demo and loved the game, though, in the end, Dragon Quest VIII, I bought it for the Final Fantasy 12 demo.
Mm-hmm.
And then I didn't have it when I was a kid. Well, I didn't get it when I was a kid. I got it a little bit older, but Parasite Eve, I already had all the other games on it, so it came with a demo that has Xenogears, Bushido Blade 2, Brave Fencer Musashi, and
Yeah,
Final
that's
Fantasy
what I was
8.
thinking.
I just remember my little sister had got some of the games. She got a PlayStation eventually because the Nintendos were always my consoles, and she wanted to have her own eventually. Not to say eventually twice, but she eventually got Resident Evil 3 because she'd seen me getting into Resident Evil 2 on the N64.
Yep.
And that had the Dino Crisis demo. So I played a little bit of that, and she's not anywhere near the gamer I am, and a bunch of her PlayStation games are kind of mine now. So there's that.
Yep.
Yeah. The other thing is like I have a bunch of the store demo discs from different kiosks and things as well, which I can still run and play for some of those.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's something I would like to collect, but it's not like a high priority. Like it'd just be fun to have. Like you're talking about, like all the extra features. I that's one of the things I'm like, oh, I wish I would have kept those for that. I didn't think about that when I was like growing up.
I
Yeah.
kind of wish my dad. Well, I wish my dad and I had kept all of the free AOL trial discs.
Oh yeah.
You wouldn't have room in your house.
Yeah. All right. So I think that's going to do it. But
That's awesome.
but before we start wrapping things up, so Zenspath, where can we find you?
So you can still find me on the Hellscape. That is Twitter for the moment as I watch the world burn. At Zenspath, Zenspath. You can also find me over at Zenspath.com over at YouTube. That's where we have host the video version of our show. As we said before, the Zenspath 4-Button Podcast. Also, I do a series called Moving Forward, where I will record the openings and the demo reels and things for my game collection so that people can go back and see how they loaded, what they did. And I have extra quarter versions, and that's where I put the extra videos from demo discs or bonus things in the even stuff like Uncharted. I recorded all of the behind the scenes that were only on the original PS3 version of it, where they talk about it, fun stuff like that. So
Yeah.
and then for collection, you can find me on Instagram. I think is also Zenspath, com. I post pictures of my collection and stuff on there, so enjoy.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. McPatches, where can we find you?
Here. I stream on Twitch 4 days a week. I'm on Twitter as well, same name. It's linked in my Twitch. And then I am on TikTok. I've been bad about uploading on there, but there's a lot of gaming content and clips from my stream. And I have some plans for other things, but I don't want to say I'm going to do them until I do them. So, yeah, I stream on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, 7 to like 11-ish. And then on Sundays, I stream noon to usually about 5.
Okay. Yeah.
PST. I live in the West Coast, so.
Yeah, West Coast. Yeah. That's just how it is. All right. Mantle, where can we find you?
Can find me on the Twitchiverse at Mantle Ferox. Thank you so much for that shout out there. I am trying to get back into a consistent schedule after life has thrown all sorts of punches and curveballs at me. I usually try to get between 2 and 3 streams a week, but right now I'm kind of staggering because with Tears of the Kingdom coming out and the big Zelda fan that I am, I am basically going to be off Twitch for a while, not necessarily because I'm hiding from anything, but because I'm going to get so absorbed in that game, I know I'm not going to want to play anything else. And I know I'm going to want to share that with, have that on my own, have that experience, and then I'll just kind of emerge from Hyrule eventually. But hopefully by midsummer, I should be, well, I'm sorry, mid-June, I should say, hopefully be back a bit more consistent with that. But yeah, thank you so much for that shout out. You can follow the link there. I am also on the Twitterverse. Twitter, still been pretty decent for me, mainly because I've also got a bunch of like Japanese as well as cosplay friends on there.
Yep.
My Twitter's right there. I just put the link in chat, Mantle Ferox, same name. I do post stream stuff, but also a bunch of my own thoughts and various retweets. So it's a nice, good variety, same as what we've been talking about with collecting. I am also on Instagram. That one's not Mantle Ferox, that's M Factor Cosplay. Just put the link in chat. Per the name, it is mostly for my cosplay stuff that I mentioned, although there is the occasional work picture, because marine biologist, somewhat stuff I can share, as well as my cat Nudge. I'm steadily getting more into posting the cosplay picture, so yeah, you can find me on each of those. And like I said, all around Twitch, both my own channel as well as any of these fine friends of mine and our whole awesome retro community.
Oh yeah, totally. All right.
Yeah, I just dropped the link to my Twitter because I post memes and go lives and other dumb things on there.
Yep.
I sadly keep forgetting there's chat until the end.
It's all good.
No, you're good, dude.
It's all good.
I'm old.
It's fine. It's fine.
Well, the three of us are not that much younger than you. You're fine.
Yeah. Anyway, like, you could obviously find me anywhere, like, on social media at ShellshockPrime, like, same username across multiple places, and again, like, daily streams Monday through Thursdays, and sharing with Shellshock, it's been very sporadic, but it's been mostly happening on Sundays. I originally thought I was going to have an episode, like, next week, which would be on May 7th, but I'm not sure yet. More than likely not, but I'll try to get one for the 14th. But I definitely have an episode planned, which is going to be about Saturday morning cartoons, nice. I do have confirmed guests for that one, which will be my buddy Zykrul, who was on the show twice before. We got Hito Retro Gaming for that one. We got the Nostalgic Alchemist on that. Another former guest, and for the first time we got Kurt Dog, who does a lot of YouTube streams. They will all be guests on that episode. That will happen on May 28th, so definitely tune in for that one. But until then, that's gonna do it. So thank you all for watching, and see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Peace.